Chapter 3072. Dong Yuan's personality wasn't that simple. Although she loved to listen to flattery, she was still kind. With Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi by her side, at least they didn't have to mistreat themselves anymore. If they knew that these two were the number one existences below virtuous paragons in the secondary universe, they would be so shocked that their teeth would fall out. No one would have thought that the manor head of the crazy manor would act like a fool in front of a distinguished family. Supremacy Yi was even more pitiful and had a pair of eloquent lips. He had coaxed Dong Yuan into laughing all the time and directly treated him as a trusted subordinate. Yi Qinghan only wanted to reach Yishini Mountain as soon as possible and get the Sunshot Immortal Vanquishing Bow. It was very difficult to act like an idiot. He really wanted to kill Supreme Yi with one slap. This group had been rushing all year round. Many of them couldn't go on any longer, but they had to grit their teeth and move on for the sake of being blessed by Ho Yi's godfather. Supreme Yi successfully coaxed the beauty and sat at the front of the carriage. Meanwhile, Yi Qinghan could only smile foolishly. He couldn't use any power and had to rely on his body to follow the carriage. Most of the Dongyi disciples had their own mounts. Even the servants had demon horses as their mounts. Only Yi Qinghan was silently moving forward. Yi Qinghan seemed to be a fool, but he knew better than anyone that the dangers around him were under his control. Just as a large group of people was passing through a valley, Yi Qinghan's eyes suddenly flashed as he sensed a terrifying demonic beast awakening in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the demonic beast charged into the group. The adventurers and mercenaries were no match for the demonic beast, and countless of them died in an instant. Blood flowed like rivers. Yi Qinghan could only sense that the demonic beast was very powerful, but he was not sure what it was. He had never seen it before. The main thing was that its strength and speed were too strong. It could instantly break through the opponent's defense and attack. Supremacy Yi Qinghan was a sage, so it was impossible for him to not sense things that were thousands of miles away. However, the others did not have the terrifying souls of Yi Qinghan and Supremacy. Moreover, this was the inner world of a virtuous paragon, so the laws of order were more rigorous. It was not like a small plane, where experts could instantly cover the entire planet with life. At this point, even the Eastern barbarian's third uncle could only cover an area of 300 to 400 miles. Any further and he would have to expend a lot of energy. He was very arrogant and was confident that the Eastern barbarians would not encounter any danger here. Therefore, he was too lazy to extend his soul 1,000 miles away. Think of a way to stall for time. Otherwise, we'll soon collide with that ferocious creature. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice to Sovereign Yi. Sovereign Yi rolled his eyes and lazily lay in front of the carriage, taking over the coachman's job. He replied faintly, "If we collide with it, so be it. It's just a progenitor realm demonic beast. I can kill it with a flip of my finger." Yi Qinghan said helplessly, "We need a reasonable identity. Do you understand? The other party is not an enemy. They are the inheritors of Ho Yi the virtuous paragon. They don't know about our existence, but we know about their existence. Once we're exposed today, we can only go to Mount Yi by force. Many people will die." Sovereign Yi frowned and pondered. Then, he said to Dong Yuan, who was in the carriage, "Beautiful goddess, should we change our route or take a rest?" However, Dong Yuan rejected him directly. "This route is the shortest. We can't change our route without permission. As for taking a rest, there's a medium-sized city 3,000 miles away. We'll rest there. Don't talk nonsense, or third uncle will scold you again." Sovereign Yi shrugged and spread his hands, indicating that he had no other choice. The speed of the convoy was very fast. The demonic beast was still wreaking havoc, hunting human experts everywhere. Shouts could be heard endlessly. 4 hours later, they were only 200 miles away from the demonic beast. They could reach it with a wave of attack. Third uncle finally felt that something was wrong. He even vaguely heard cries for help and the demonic beast's cries, but he did not know what the demonic beast was. Whoosh! Third Uncle Dongi Luan waved his hand, and a divine bow appeared in his hand. The bow was covered in runes, and it was incomparably majestic. There were more than 10 sharp arrows in the quiver on his back. "Everyone, speed up and prepare for battle," Dongi Luan said in a deep voice. Yes. More than a few hundred people took out their divine weapons and began to speed up. Yi Qinghan really wanted to inform them that this ferocious beast had already killed several progenitor realm figures. Their team was no different from delivering food to the demonic beast. At this moment, Dong Yuan actually appeared. For the first time, she stood outside the carriage. She was dressed in a blue robe and held a delicate longbow in her hand. Her body was straight and her figure was perfect. She had everything that she should have and nothing that she should not have. Dong Yuan thought that something good had happened. At this moment, she was excited and full of fighting spirit. Sovereign Yi shook his head. This girl was really not afraid of death. She did not even know her opponent and was already acting recklessly. What should we do? Sovereign Yi secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan as he watched the show. Yi Qinghan groaned. At this moment, he could only brace himself and leave. If there was really no other way, he could only make a move. He could not just watch these people be swallowed alive. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom. Hundreds of people did not know who their opponent was, and they charged towards the mountain on the other side unstoppably. Bang. Pooh! At this moment, a figure directly smashed through a mountain. His physical body was directly shattered, and his internal organs were completely turned into powder. He fell heavily in front of them. Dongi Luan was shocked. He took the lead and rushed forward. Seeing that the face of the corpse had been smashed and had lost all signs of life, he could tell that this expert was a half-martial ancestor. He did not expect that he would die so miserably. Whoosh! Dongi Luan soared into the sky. The arrow was already knocked on the bowstring, and he looked around for a target. Outside the mountain was a huge valley surrounded by mountains. The road was cut off and the mountains had collapsed. In the valley there was an extremely ugly monster with a mouth full of blood. It was actually eating human corpses. Even martial ancestor realm experts could not escape death. "It's a mighty ghost beast," Dongi Luan cried out in shock, and the bow in his hand directly flew out. Whoosh, boom. The power of the divine crossbow was enough to annihilate an entire generation of experts. However, as soon as it neared the ugly Yao beast, it was grabbed by its claws. Its red eyes flashed with an ominous glint as it gave up on chasing after the two strongest progenitors and set its sights on Dongi Luan. Dongi Luan's hair stood on end. He shouted to the back, "It's a mighty ghost beast." Run! Mighty ghost beasts were ferocious beasts that were as strong as ghosts. They were strong enough to uproot mountains and fill seas. They could break through the defenses of large cities with a single attack. They were the nightmare of humans. No one wanted to encounter such a ferocious beast. Therefore, when Dongi Luan said that it was a mighty ghost beast, everyone was stunned. Even Dongi Yuan, who was full of fighting spirit, was stunned. Why is there such a thing here? Dongi Yuan muttered to herself. She had already given up on running. Mighty ghost beasts were vengeful. If they targeted an enemy, they would not rest until the enemy was dead. Most importantly, their speed and strength were comparable to martial ancestor realm experts. Only a sage could suppress them. At such a close distance, Yi Qinghan finally saw the ugliness of this creature. It was worthy of being called a mighty ghost beast. Bang! Boom! Before anyone could react, the divine bow in Dongi Luan's hand was smashed into pieces. His body was like a kite with a broken string, and he crashed into the crowd, coughing up blood. In an instant, the convoy was in chaos. Don't be afraid. My big brother was born with divine strength. My big brother can defeat such an ugly thing. At this moment, Sovereign Yi suddenly stood up and vowed. Chapter 3073. There were a few hundred people in the convoy. If one person was in a mess, everyone else would be in a mess. The spirit ghost beast was a nightmare for humans. Aside from the sages, no one dared to provoke it. Dong Yuan, who was full of fighting spirit a second ago, was now frozen in place. She almost couldn't hold the bow in her hand. Her whole body was trembling, and she didn't hear what Supremacy Yi said at all. Roar! The spirit ghost beast leaped over a tall mountain and rushed to the front of the convoy. There was still a large piece of flesh on its fangs. It wasn't very big, but it was still twice the size of a human. Its 4 limbs were very powerful. Yi Qinghan's eyelids twitched. This creature's strength was endless. He might not be able to withstand its attack with just his physical strength. Everyone, don't panic. My big brother is born with divine strength. This ugly thing is not enough for him to beat, Supremacy Yi shouted as he patted his chest. However, no one listened to him. They didn't even care about Dong Yuan. They all retreated, but could they escape the spirit ghost beast's speed? Boom! At that moment, Yi Qinghan spread his wings like a rock. He stomped on the ground and appeared in front of the spirit ghost beast in the blink of an eye. Puff, cough, cough, cough. Dong Yiluan coughed up blood and retreated to Dong Yuan's side. He felt that Yi Qinghan was sending himself to death. He hurriedly said, Yuan Yuan, I'll cover you. Leave quickly. Don't worry. I know my big brother's strength. There's no need to run, Supremacy Yi said indifferently. Scram! Dong Yiluan flew into a rage. He didn't want to listen to an idiot. Bang! Roar! At that moment, Yi Qinghan suddenly grabbed the spirit ghost beast's 2 front limbs. He crossed his legs, one in front and one behind. He was actually wrestling with the spirit ghost beast. The ground collapsed. The spirit ghost beast wanted to lift Yi Qinghan up and eat him. However, it couldn't lift Yi Qinghan up even after 2 attempts. Therefore, its angry roar shattered the galaxy. Its aura suppressed Dong Yiluan so much that he couldn't breathe. Haha! Look, I told you. My boss was born with divine strength. Although he was given a retarded head, he was given a perfect physical body. That ugly thing definitely won't be able to defeat my big brother. Supreme Yi immediately laughed out loud. Dong Yiluan and Dong Yuan were scared out of their wit. They looked at Yi Qinghan, who was wrestling with the spirit ghost beast in the distance. What kind of monster is he? Dong Yiluan muttered to himself in horror. What a terrifying physical body! Dong Yuan's lips turned pale. The fact that he could still stand firm at this moment showed that his mental state was very strong. Crack, 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 the earth cracked and a chasm appeared. Yi Qinghan felt as if he was hugging a huge star, and he couldn't lift or shake off the strength ghost beast. Bang! Yi Qinghan kicked upwards with his long leg and hit the spirit ghost beast's chin. The spirit ghost beast was sent flying by the kick. However, the spirit ghost beast swung its arm and sent Yi Qinghan flying to the rear of the crowd. Ah, it hurts! Yi Qinghan grimaced. His right arm was bruised, and the claw mark on his arm looked particularly terrifying. Roar! The spirit ghost beast patted its chest, causing a tuft of fur to fall off. It stared at Yi Qinghan fiercely. It seemed that it had never seen a human who could compete with it in terms of physical strength. At this moment, Supremacy Yi shouted, Boss, kill it! You are born with divine strength. Yi Qinghan looked like a retard, but there was wisdom hidden in the depths of his eyes. He was thinking about how to quietly eliminate this spirit ghost beast. It wasn't as if he hadn't seen such a ferocious creature with incomparable strength when he was young. The water monkey was an existence that could erupt with strength countless times stronger in the water. Did this spirit ghost beast also need a specific environment to erupt with such strength? Roar! The spirit ghost beast seemed to have been challenged. It jumped up 100 meters and pounced forward. Boom! Yi Qinghan was even more powerful. His physical body was absolutely invincible. He had never met a match at the same level as him. He flipped his hands and grabbed the spirit ghost beast's forelimbs. His long leg kicked the spirit ghost beast's abdomen. Boom! Bang bang bang! The spirit ghost beast was not to be trifled with. Its hind limbs kicked forward fiercely. Containing the profound meaning of the extreme Tao, it collided with Yi Qinghan's legs a few times. Its body tumbled in the void and directly crashed into the mountain. Crack crack crack! Yi Qinghan's hands clashed with the spirit ghost beast's forelimbs. One could even hear the sound of bones shattering. The veins all over his body bulged, and even his battle robe was shattered. Little white cloud attached to both of his wrists, increasing his strength by more than 10 times. In an instant, the situation was reversed, and he forcibly suppressed the spirit ghost beast. Boom! Yi Qinghan punched the spirit ghost beast's head. However, its defense was even more abnormal. It used its head to block the punch, and his fist was dripping with blood. Roar! Whoosh! The spirit ghost beast seemed to have felt that Yi Qinghan's strength was unrivaled. It actually flung its body and sent Yi Qinghan flying. However, it mobilized its powerful limbs, and the instantaneous jumping power produced an explosive speed that was even faster than the limit of the ancestor realm. Whoosh! The entire valley was filled with the spirit ghost beast. It held a grudge, and it didn't attack anyone else. Instead, it specifically targeted Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Dong Yuan and Dong Luan were both dumbfounded. They had never seen such a physical body before. This kind of miracle exists? Is he really an idiot? Dong Luan asked in shock. Sovereign Yi replied very firmly, yes. However, he can't be considered an idiot. It's just that his intelligence is a bit lacking. Normally, there won't be any major problems, and he's good at work. Therefore, you must not leave us behind. We don't want wages. And where could they find such a good thing? Who would chase away such an abnormal physical body? How fast is he? Does he have a chance of winning against this spirit ghost beast? Dong Luan asked in shock. Sovereign Yi immediately said proudly, it's nothing. You don't have to panic. When my big brother gets serious, even I am afraid. At this moment, Yi Qinghan didn't mobilize any of the profound mysteries of the laws. He was relying solely on his physical body. His eyes narrowed into a line, and his fists were clenched tightly. He closed his eyes and sensed the spirit ghost beast's specific location. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan moved his feet and drew an arc. All the strength in his body was concentrated on his right fist, waiting for a fatal blow. This spirit ghost beast seemed to be unwilling to give up until it achieved its goal. It had been beaten back by Yi Qinghan several times. This time, it revealed its ferocity and killing intent. Now was the time. Yi Qinghan was sure that the spirit ghost beast was accumulating power. At this moment, it had reached its peak. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's left hand moved to the left, and his right fist drew a 180-degree arc. He fiercely smashed backward, and the void collapsed, forming a black hole. Everything was swallowed up, and the mountains were disintegrated. Bang! Roar! The spirit ghost beast's powerful attack fiercely smashed toward Yi Qinghan. However, just as the attack reached his back, it was met with Yi Qinghan's physical body's peak attack. Crack! Roar! The spirit ghost beast's forelimbs were broken. Its body was like a broken kite. This time, it was its turn to fly backward. Bang! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and swept the black hole away. With the tearing force of the black hole, he smashed toward the spirit ghost beast's head. Bang, bang, bang! Yi Qinghan's frenzied attacks instantly turned the spirit ghost beast into a bloody mess. The spirit ghost beast was smashed until it was on the verge of death. It didn't even have the strength to resist. Sovereign Yi looked at Dong Luan and Dong Yuan proudly. He said proudly, I told you. My big brother's physical body is unparalleled. He is unparalleled in the world. This ugly thing is definitely not my big brother's match. Dong Yiluan was almost certain that Yi Qinghan hadn't used any profound mysteries of the laws. It was all the power of his physical body. Chapter 3074. Outside the valley, it was a mess. Yi Qinghan suppressed the ghost beast's attack. It seemed like he didn't use any mysterious divine power, but he did use the power of the universe. However, it was too mysterious, so no one noticed when the Yixin realm was being controlled. The ghost beast used its strength to intimidate the common people. Its speed and strength far exceeded that of humans. Even progenitor realm experts couldn't compete with it. However, at this moment, the few surviving progenitor realm experts and Dong Yuan were dumbfounded. They couldn't accept this situation at all. The dignified ghost beast, a ferocious creature that could make progenitor realm experts' hair stand on end, was defeated by a retard? Dongi Elder, who is this person? A few progenitor realm experts who had escaped death appeared in front of Dong Yiluan and asked in trembling voices. Dong Yiluan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He was glad that he hadn't angered Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi when he ordered them around. Otherwise, if Yi Qinghan flew into a rage, he would probably be smashed to death. He's a servant of my family. He was born with divine power, but he didn't cultivate, Dong Yiluan said in a low voice. What? He's a servant? Dongi Elder, don't talk nonsense. A progenitor realm expert exclaimed in shock. Only then did Dong Yuan recover and quickly said, He's not a servant. He's just my two friends. Don't have any ideas. Supreme Sovereign Yi held his head high and puffed out his chest proudly. He perfectly acted out the expression of a villain who had succeeded. Just by looking at Supreme Sovereign Yi's appearance, one could tell that they weren't experts. They were probably born with divine power. That was all. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Then, he returned to his demented appearance. With a silly smile on his face, he ran back happily to ask for praise. Dong Yuan treated the two of them as guests of honor. With such innate divine power, it was equivalent to having a sage. The expressions of the Dongi clanspeople were extremely exaggerated, especially the few young men and manservants who had treated Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi like slaves. Their legs were trembling and they were extremely terrified. Why aren't you kneeling and admitting your mistakes? Dong Yiluan glanced at those people and reprimanded coldly. Bang bang bang. Dozens of people knelt on the ground. Yi Qinghan was still smiling foolishly, while Supremacy Yi was intoxicated with success. With a look of disdain, he said, I won't argue with you. Just give us more food in the future. Of course, of course. Dong Yiluan smiled sheepishly. Those progenitor realm cultivators were shocked and confused. They did not expect that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi were actually working hard in the Dongi family and did not even have enough to eat. Two little brothers, why don't you follow this old man? I guarantee that you won't have to worry about food and clothing. An elderly ancestor realm expert immediately extended an olive branch. When the others saw this, they immediately threw out an olive branch. They really wanted to recruit Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi. Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan's goal was not to have a mouthful of rice, but to have a status. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, they were not willing to move at all. Does your family have such a great beauty? Supreme Yi looked at Dong Yuan and asked seriously. The few progenitor realm cultivators could not help but look at each other. They did not expect Supreme Yi to be doing this for a beauty. Dong Yuan's beauty was indeed top-notch. She was ranked in the top 6 in the entire E-God realm. She was not someone who could be found anywhere, so they could only shake their heads truthfully. Then that's enough. This beautiful bodhisattva of my family will definitely receive Father God's approval this year. We'll follow her and won't move, Supreme Yi said proudly. Yes, yes. Yi Qinghan nodded in response in all seriousness. When Dong Yiluan saw that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi had rejected him, he immediately said with a straight face, "We saved you guys, but you guys actually tried to poach us. How can you do such a thing of repaying kindness with enmity? Let's go." Whoosh. The convoy immediately set off. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were arranged to sit in a bright carriage, side by side with Dong Yuan. They were in the middle, and after a while, they left the few progenitor realm cultivators far behind. Dong Yuan popped her head out from time to time. With a smile on her beautiful face, she asked, "Little brothers of the Yi family, where are you from?" At this moment, Yi Qinghan was thinking about the situation of the ghost beast with his eyes closed. He did not pay attention to Dong Yuan. On the other hand, Supreme Yi said frankly, "We came from a remote mountain village. We grew up together since we were young. We have money to sleep in inns, but we don't have money to sleep in caves. We don't have a fixed place to stay. Stay at my house from now on. If you follow me, I guarantee that you'll sleep in an inn every day." Dong Yuan patted her chest and promised. Supreme Yi immediately replied happily, "That's great. The feeling of sleeping in an inn is really great." Along the way, Supreme Yi had been deceiving them. He said one thing after another, and made it sound like he was telling the truth. Even Dong Yuan and Dong Yiluan didn't doubt him. As long as they believed that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were from the inner realm, they wouldn't have any more conflicts with the experts on Yishan Mountain. Yi Qinghan rested for a few days and secretly sent a voice transmission. Ask her about the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow and see if she's in Yishan realm. If she is, get the specific information out of her. It's naturally best if we can quietly take away the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. After Supreme Yi received the news, his eyes flashed. Then, he followed the topic and said, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, since you're an in-name disciple of Yishan Mountain, what's the strongest weapon of Yishan Mountain? Is it as powerful as my big brother's fist?" Hee ha ha ha. Dong Yuan laughed loudly. Even Dong Yiluan could not stop laughing, as if he had heard the most ridiculous story. Supreme Yi pretended not to know and asked, "What's so funny about this? My big brother's physical body is invincible and unparalleled in the world. Could there be an existence more powerful than my big brother?" Frogs at the bottom of a well. Although Dong Yiluan despised them in his heart, he liked how short-sighted these two brothers were. Dong Yuan did not despise Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan. She just felt that their horizons were not broadened and they had not seen the world. Yishan Mountain is a sacred mountain. It's the most orthodox place of inheritance for Godfather. The most powerful weapons can be found everywhere. There are many more that are more powerful than your big brother. As for the most powerful weapon, it's naturally Godfather's sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, Dong Yuan said proudly. Yi Qinghan's eyes suddenly opened. They shone brightly and he could not help but sit up straight. Supreme Yi's heart thumped, but his expression was still very confused. He asked thoughtfully, "Oh, Godfather's sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow is the most powerful. I'm afraid that not many people can control it. I wonder if my big brother can pull that immortal bow." Dong Yuan looked helpless and sighed. Godfather's immortal bow is not something that anyone can control. I'm afraid that even the person chosen by Godfather may not be able to control the immortal bow, let alone your big brother. This depends on luck, not strength. Find out who has the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, Yi Qinghan said softly through voice transmission. Chapter 3075. Yi Qinghan urgently wanted to know the whereabouts of the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. Was it in the Yishan realm? It was of utmost importance. If it wasn't, then there was no need to waste time here. Supreme Yi asked unhurriedly, "Since this sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow is so difficult to control, then who exactly is controlling it now? It must be the number one in Yishan realm, right?" Dong Yuan shook her head and said helplessly, "This immortal weapon is too far away from us. You're still young and don't understand. Only by entering Yishin Mountain and becoming an official disciple can we come in contact with it. If we can become an elder's disciple, then we might be able to see the Bao." It was still an unknown. Yi Qinghan let out a breath and closed his eyes to rest. Yi Qinghan kept sleeping along the way and didn't answer. After all, it was too difficult to act like a retard. Supreme Yi was definitely a chatterbox. He could talk to Dong Yuan until she didn't want to talk anymore. As for the others, they didn't dare to talk to him. At best, they would be scolded, and at worst, they would be hammered. Whoever dared to resist would be shouted at by him. They didn't encounter any problems for the rest of their journey. If it was a small problem, the Eastern barbarians would be able to solve it. After more than a year, they finally entered the Yishin Mountain. They were surrounded by main cities, and it was incomparably prosperous. Ancient palaces stood proudly, and a vast aura of righteousness filled the air. Yi Qinghan was awakened from his sleep. He gently opened the curtains and looked at the floating white clouds, blue sky, and spirit energy outside. He couldn't help but be awed by the power of Yishin Mountain. He didn't expect the world of virtuous paragons to be so terrifying. Even though it had been Tao transforming for countless years, it was still comparable to a secondary world. He had to consider the 9 second-level saint powers. They must have a lot of descendants and more experts than Quang Manor. Damn, Supreme Yi looked like a country bumpkin as he looked at Yishin Mountain with purple energy coming from the east. The surrounding mountains looked like a bow with the sky as the bowstring and the earth as the body. What an amazing terrain, borrowing the power of heaven and earth. Supreme Yi was about to talk about the majesty and landscape of Yishin Mountain when he was kicked by Yi Qinghan. Supreme Exalt Yi could not help but stick out his tongue, almost exposing himself. He quickly changed his words and said, "This place is so spectacular. It's bigger than all the cities I've seen." Kakik. Dong Yuan covered her mouth and smiled faintly. She teased, "You've only seen villages and tribes. This is the largest main city in God Yi's realm. It occupies an area of several tens of thousands of miles. Even strength ghost beasts don't dare to approach this place." Oh, Sovereign Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He looked around, and that sneaky light began to appear again. However, he was kicked again by Yi Qinghan. This time, it was somewhat restrained. His serious appearance made him look like an ignorant youth. "You reap what you sow." Yi Qinghan snorted coldly and said no more. "Come down quickly. Let's find a good inn. Then, I'll show you what the majesty and dignity of a main city is." Dong Yuan jumped down from the carriage, and those youths immediately surrounded her. They didn't dare to say anything along the way. Now that they surrounded her, it seemed like they still wanted to follow her. "You guys don't need to follow me. I'll take Brother Yi and his 2 friends around. We don't need anyone to disturb us." Dong Yuan waved her small hand and chased away those youths who were in her way. Those youths were very dissatisfied, but they didn't dare to get angry at Dong Yuan. They could only bear this grudge on Supreme Yi Qinghan. After all, they didn't dare to look for him. His fist was an existence that could kill strength ghost beasts. The few of them probably wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalt Yi got down from the carriage and looked around for a long time. Then, they followed Dong Yuan, the host, into the main city. The youths from the Dongyi branch looked at the backs of Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalt Yi with resentment. They were extremely displeased. "Let's find a chance to teach that Supreme Exalt Yi a lesson." "I don't like that cheap look of his," a handsome youth said gloomily. "That's right. He's probably not as strong as us. How dare he flirt with the most beautiful fairy of our Dongyi branch? He should take a piss and look at himself in the mirror. He doesn't even have the right to marry our servant girl," another youth said immediately. "Hee, are you guys stupid? Our Yuan doesn't just have 1 or 2 followers. There's no lack of rich and powerful families and talents from the sacred mountain chasing after her. We can totally kill Supreme Exalt Yi with a borrowed knife and torture him to death, a youth with malicious eyes said softly as he licked the corner of his lips. The main city was connected in all directions. One could enter the main city through any of the gates. There were many ancient palaces and paths that led to the heavens. They were filled with veins and mysteries. Most of the people in the main city had similar cultivation levels. There weren't many true experts. Dong Yuan's level of cultivation was already considered quite good. The true experts all hid in the dark or hid their auras and kept a low profile. Yi Qinghan kept glancing at the sacred mountain. That was where the highest ruler of the God Yi realm resided. If the sun-shooting immortal destroying Bao wasn't there, who knew when he would be able to find it again? However, Dong Yuan didn't pay any attention to the silly Yi Qinghan. She just pointed at some ancient buildings and introduced them to the two of them one by one. Supreme Exalt Ye's eyes wandered around. He kept rubbing his nose and memorizing some places. He was tempted. Let's find a chance to slip away. We'll take the risk and go up the sacred mountain. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice. Supreme Exalt Yi nodded thoughtfully. However, Dong Yuan definitely wouldn't agree to leave at this time. They had to do it at night without anyone noticing. However, it was only noon and troubles were endless. Not long after the three of them walked into the city, a handsome young man holding a fan walked up to them. He was dressed in white and looked like a son of heaven. He had a warm expression on his face. He slightly performed an ancient aristocratic etiquette and said gently, "Junior sister Yuan, long time no see. I miss you very much. Why don't we have a meal together today? It just so happens that I have a meal. When I heard that you were back, I specially came to welcome you." Dong Yuan frowned. She wasn't willing to accept this kind of meal. These people were all hedonistic sons of rich families. They were all vulgar, but their statuses were very high. It wasn't good to offend them. Therefore, she didn't want to attend this kind of meal if she could. "Greetings, senior brother Dong Qing. I really don't dare to disturb your meal. You can just find a female companion. I'm still busy, so I won't be going." Dong Yuan thought for a while and firmly refused. However, Dong Qing confidently stroked his jade fan and said indifferently, "Junior sister, I made a bet with them. They will definitely invite you. This time, it won't just be some hedonistic sons of rich families. There will also be 3 of the top 10 experts of the sacred mountain and 4 of the top 10 beauties of the sacred mountain. If junior sister Yuan doesn't go, the entire meal will be overshadowed." Yi Qinghan's thoughts surged. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Supreme Exalt Yi. He secretly transmitted his voice. "Why aren't you encouraging her to go? I still want to go alone." After Supreme Exalt Yi received the instruction, he immediately said with a smile, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you should go and take a look. You can suppress the other beauties with your appearance and become the champion of the beauties. As for me and Big Brother, we'll just walk around." Dong Yuan wasn't willing to let Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalt Yi go alone. If they got lost, it would be a loss for the Dongi clan. "No, I don't want to attend those meals. It's too restrictive," Dong Yuan said firmly. Chapter 3076. Dong Yuan rejected him directly, not giving him any chance. Yi Qinghan secretly pursed his lips. He had no choice but to accompany Dong Yuan. He would exhaust her during the day so that she could have some peace at night. "Divine Bird suggests that we go along. Say that you want to see the world." Yi Qinghan transmitted his voice helplessly. Without waiting for Supremacy Yi to speak, Dong Qing glanced at Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi. Especially when he saw the dazed expression in Yi Qinghan's eyes, he could not help but frown and ask, "Junior sister Yuan, who are these two? They don't seem to be normal." Do you want me to ask an elder on the holy mountain to take a look? He's a divine doctor whose name shakes the entire god realm. He specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases, especially those whose souls have been injured. He has never failed in his treatment. His disciple, the master apothecary, is also at the dinner party. I can introduce him to him. Perhaps the master apothecary can treat him himself. Dong Yuan was immediately energized when she heard that. If Yi Qinghan could cultivate, coupled with his physical body, the Dongyi lineage would have a sage. When that happened, the Dongyi lineage would become a rich and powerful family. Supremacy Yi pretended to be overjoyed. If he could sneak into the holy mountain through these young people, then everyone would be happy. Immortal, please save my big brother. I'll definitely repay you in the future, Supremacy Yi said while bowing repeatedly. Dong Yuan also bowed and said, Senior brother Dong Qing, please help me introduce him. I'm just an in-name disciple. I really don't have the right to ask an elder for help. Dong Qing nodded proudly. He was one of the 7 disciples of the Holy Mountain's great elder. His status was only second to a few others. Dong Yuan quickly extended her hand and explained, Supremacy Yi, Senior brother Dong Qing is the 7th disciple of the Holy Mountain's great elder. His status is very high. Back then, he was the one who recommended me to become an in-name disciple. If he can save your big brother, he might be able to return to normal. Supremacy Yi said happily, Good, good, good. My elder brother was beaten up when he was young and his soul was injured. Until now, he still can't recover. He only remembers this young brother of mine. If beautiful Bodhisattva and exalted immortal can save him, I'll definitely treat you guys to a big meal. Dong Yuan was also filled with anticipation. She said to Dong Qing, Senior brother Dong Qing, these 2 are my maternal relatives. The one whose soul was injured is called Yi Qinghan, and he's my older cousin. This little fellow is called Supreme Sovereign Yi, and he's my younger cousin. I hope Senior brother Dong Qing will take good care of him. Dong Qing smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile. He raised his arm slightly and said, That will depend on junior sister Yuanyuan's performance. Dong Yuan's face turned slightly red. She bowed and said, Senior apprentice brother Dong Qing, you must be joking. Men and women should not touch each other. Senior apprentice brother, please respect your junior apprentice sister. Dong Qing smiled awkwardly and gestured with his hand. Junior sister Yuanyuan, I was just joking. Let's go. Everyone is waiting for you. I said that I would definitely bring you there. Everyone is looking forward to it. Dong Yuan was one of the top 10 beauties and was ranked 6th. As for the top 3, 2 of them were saintesses of the Holy Mountain. They had high statuses and no one dared to blaspheme them. Dong Qing did not dare to do so either. Therefore, Dong Yuan, who had no status, rose in status. Many people wanted to pursue her. However, in terms of status, Dong Qing was still the most powerful. Dong Yuan's face turned slightly red. She knew herself well. She did not like to climb up the social ladder. Otherwise, her status would be very awkward. However, her clansmen hoped that she could become a phoenix. Therefore, they had been choosing her all these years. Dong Qing was also one of the candidates. However, she did not feel moved. The group of 4 quickly passed through the street. With Dong Qing leading the way, no one dared to stop them. They were very fast. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they appeared in the main city's inner city. This place was even more prosperous. Sovereign Ye's eyes almost popped out. This place was filled with treasures. There were many resources that could not be found in the outside world. In the virtuous world, inheritances had never been cut off. This included treasures. Many resources had already disappeared in the original universe or the secondary universe. Even if there were, they were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. However, there were still many here. This was because the people here knew how to proceed step by step and recycle them. Otherwise, it would be no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Gulp, Sovereign Ye's gaze revealed his greed. His gaze was like that of a person entering a city from the mountains. Everything he saw was new and fresh. Dong Yuan coughed dryly and gestured for Sovereign Yi to restrain himself. However, he was already immersed in these treasures, so he ignored her existence. Cough cough. Dong Yuan was very embarrassed and quickly said, "Senior brother Dong Qing, the two of them grew up in a mountain village and have never seen the world. When it comes to the meal, I'm worried that there will be an accident." Dong Qing said indifferently, "Who wouldn't give face to junior sister Yuan? Everyone has some poor relatives. It's okay, I'll explain it to everyone." Therefore, Dong Yuan was on tenterhooks. She was afraid that Yi Qinghan would cause some big trouble. If Yi Qinghan beat some of the young masters of the rich and powerful families half to death, then there would be a big problem. My cousin was born with divine strength and has a bad temper. I hope that senior brother can restrain them and not tease my cousin, Dong Yuan reminded him. Born with divine strength? Dong Qing looked indifferently at Yi Qinghan. There was no fluctuation of the power of laws or order on his body. How strong could his pure strength be? Junior sister, just enjoy this meal. I'll take all the responsibility for any accidents. Whoever causes trouble will have to bear the consequences. Wouldn't you be a big fool to argue with a fool? Dong Qing said disdainfully. My brother is not a fool. Sovereign Yi snorted. The corner of Dong Qing's mouth twitched. He didn't want to provoke Dong Yuan's cousin, so he said, "Sorry, I said the wrong thing. Your brother is indeed not a fool. It's just that his soul is injured. There will be a chance for him to recover in the future." Only then did Sovereign Yi nod in satisfaction. Not long after, the four of them arrived at the most prosperous area of the inner city at the foot of the sacred mountain. Those who could come here were all influential people. Even ordinary rich people couldn't come. Yi Qinghan covered the area with his divine sense, memorizing all the nearby streets in case he needed them. His divine sense was more than powerful. As long as he didn't come into contact with the sages, there would be no problem. Sovereign Yi was also searching silently, extending his search up the sacred mountain. Yishinshan was the highest peak of the Yishinshan realm. It was also the peak of power. Ho Yi's statue stood in the east of Yishinshan. It was as tall as the sky and held a huge, sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. It could be seen clearly from the other side of the mountain. Yi Qinghan looked at the statue and the huge bow. His eyes flashed with a strange light, but he quickly returned to normal. At this moment, Dong Qing and Dong Yuan stopped in front of a luxurious restaurant. The Drunken God residence was the most luxurious restaurant in the Yishinshan realm. Here, even gods could only lie down drunk and treat this place as their home. The biggest private room has been booked by the son of the God of Fortune for 3 months. This guy is really rich. I can't even afford to book for a day, but he can book for 3 consecutive months. Dong Qing smiled bitterly and sighed. Today, I went to take the second exam. For 4 consecutive days, including getting used to the venue and the exam, I'm limited in how much I can write, so the update might be reduced to 2 chapters. If I don't have time, I'll tell you in advance. Chapter 3077. There were several hundred private rooms in the huge Drunken God residence. The minimum cost of the largest private room was almost the entire fortune of a small family. Those who could really afford it could probably spend 3 to 5 small families in a day without a problem. The road was paved with gold, and the stairs were made of white jade. Even the paintings on the walls were made by masters. Such a luxurious restaurant was rarely seen, even in all the secondary universes. Yi Qinghan was a little surprised. He had really underestimated this virtuous sage world. Sovereign Yi swallowed his saliva and looked at the ornaments made of godly treasures. His eyes shone with a thieving light. It was obviously not Dong Yuan's first time in such a big place, but she didn't look sideways. She also showed greed and anticipation when she saw these treasures, so she tried her best to maintain etiquette. The people passing by were all rich and powerful, but when they saw Dong Qing and Dong Yuan, they would all salute and greet them. They didn't want to offend these powerful people. Many people were paying attention to Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi because the two of them weren't wearing tattered clothes. Instead, they were wearing the clothes of servants. They didn't expect that there would be servants coming in and out of this place. If they hadn't been brought in by Dong Yuan and Dong Qing, they would have been kicked out long ago. Soon, the four of them appeared on the middle floor of the building. The entire floor was filled with private rooms. Even the stairs were winding. In the private rooms on this floor, other than beauties, there were also handsome men. All of them were peerless in their generation and were as handsome as jade. As soon as Dong Qing and Dong Yuan appeared, everyone stood out. 100 flowers vied with each other as if they wanted to suppress the others. There were 3 beauties with peerless appearances, and their every move carried the aura of nobility. They were rare in the world and could be ranked among the top in all the secondary universes. They were accompanied by several young men with extremely strong cultivations. All of them were arrogant, and their auras almost surpassed Dong Qing's. Yi Qinghan's sluggish eyes roughly swept over them. He could confirm the identities of 2 people. One was wearing gold and silver, and even his ornaments were rare treasures. This person was definitely the son of the god of fortune and was known as the little god of fortune. As for the other one, his body was filled with a medicinal fragrance, but his fingertips were black. He must have been poisoned for many years. He should be the divine alchemist's disciple, master apothecary. As for the 3 great beauties, they were definitely the 5th, 7th, and 9th beauties. As for their names, Yi Qinghan was not interested in them at all. These vulgar women only knew how to compete with each other in terms of beauty. They were even worse than Dong Yuan. Their cultivation was not bad. At least half of them were in the Taigu Emperor realm, and 3 were in the Ancestor realm, as expected of the virtuous sage world. In terms of the younger generation, they were much stronger than the sage world. These people were definitely not the pinnacle of the younger generation in God Yi's realm. Yi Qinghan was deeply shocked. If a young sage had appeared, he might even understand. At this time, Dong Qing smiled, the pride in his eyes self-evident. How is it? I said that I would personally go and invite junior sister Yuan. Ha ha! Little god of fortune, do you want to punish yourself by drinking 3 cups of the drunken god residence's strongest wine? Dong Qing laughed loudly. The little god of fortune was round like a little fatty. At this time, he looked at Dong Yuan with dissatisfaction and said in a muffled voice, Junior sister Yuan, you don't give me any face. I invited you to join us 3 times in a row, and you refused. This year, when senior brother Dong Qing made his move, you immediately came. Aren't you deliberately slapping my face? Senior brother little god of fortune, please don't take offense. Today I came because I have something to do. In these past few years, I have indeed rarely participated in these kinds of banquets. It's not that I don't want to give you all face, it's because I really don't know how to socialize. Instead, I'll make everyone unhappy. Dong Yuan hurriedly replied. Dong Yuan did not dare to offend anyone here because everyone's background was greater than hers. When everyone heard this, they immediately roared with laughter. It seemed that Dong Qing's face was not big enough. They immediately felt much better. The little god of fortune laughed even harder. He bared his teeth and said to Dong Qing, Senior brother Dong Qing, if I went to invite her this time, junior sister Yuan would also come. This time doesn't count. Dong Qing was very embarrassed. It seemed that this great beauty really did not know how to socialize. Everyone ignored Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi, but the two of them would not ignore themselves. The two of them sat down and started eating. Moreover, they specifically chose exotic delicacies that they had never eaten before. In a short while, the good dishes on the table were wiped clean. In an instant, the entire private room fell silent. Dong Yuan was even more dumbfounded. She did not expect Sovereign Yi and Yi Qinghan to be so impolite. Delicious, delicious. Yi Qinghan touched his mouth and ran directly to another table. Cough, cough. Dong Qing looked at everyone's disdainful and dissatisfied expressions and hurriedly explained, "Everyone, these two people are junior sister Yuan's cousins. Because their souls were severely injured, they are slightly demented. Please don't mind them." This time, junior sister Yuan came because she hoped that senior brother Master Apothecary could help treat her. At this moment, the young man with jet-black fingers had a strange look in his eyes. He stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. The character of a person who refined medicine had always been like this. They treated everyone in the world as experimental subject. He wanted to save people not purely because he wanted to save them, but because he wanted to use them as experimental subjects. Whoosh! The Master Apothecary almost teleported to Yi Qinghan's side. This speed shocked Yi Qinghan. It was also because of this instinctive reaction that the Master Apothecary believed that this person was truly a demented person. Whoosh! The Master Apothecary pressed his 5 fingers on Yi Qinghan's head. Just as he was about to react, Yi Qinghan raised his fist and was about to punch him. However, he was stopped by Dong Yuan. "Cousin, don't resist. This senior brother is helping to heal your soul. It will be good for you." Dong Yuan looked at the Master Apothecary apologetically and said embarrassedly, "Senior brother Apothecary, please don't take offense. My cousin's brain is not working well. He can't differentiate between friend and foe." The Master Apothecary was not a saint. He also had a heart of beauty. Since Dong Yuan had apologized, how could he not appreciate it? He smiled slightly, but it was filled with coldness. "It's fine. Junior sister, step aside. Let me take a look." The Master Apothecary's divine sense covered Yi Qinghan's soul. How could his soul be compared to Yi Qinghan's? Yi Qinghan had deliberately weakened his soul, just like an ordinary person. There were indeed some injuries in his soul. Moreover, they had injured his foundation. However, this was all a facade that Yi Qinghan had deliberately created. The Master Apothecary continued to test Yi Qinghan, as if he was treating Yi Qinghan as an experimental subject. He attacked him several times, not caring whether or not Yi Qinghan was in pain. Yi Qinghan pretended to resist, but Dong Yuan kept comforting him, so there was no big mess. After a long time, the Master Apothecary stopped attacking and fed Yi Qinghan a soul-type divine pill. However, it still did not work. This is really strange. Logically speaking, this should not have happened. If the progenitor or the sage had made a move, he should have died long ago. If the sage and the progenitor had not made a move, I would have definitely healed the injuries on his soul. The Master Apothecary frowned. This kind of setback did not feel good, especially in front of so many people. Yi Qinghan secretly smiled. He did not want the Master Apothecary to heal his injuries at all. He only wanted to borrow Dong Qing and the Master Apothecary's hands to ascend the sacred mountain. Sovereign Yi pretended to be disappointed and said, "Even the dignified Master Apothecary could not heal my big brother's soul. It seems that there is no one in this world who can heal my big brother." Nonsense. When my master, the divine medicine, makes a move, there is no injury in this world that cannot be healed. The Master Apothecary coldly reprimanded. Dong Yuan immediately bowed and said, "Senior brother Apothecary, please help me introduce him. This cousin of mine was born with divine strength. If he cannot cultivate, it will be a great loss to my Ishan realm. We are now in the city." I will try to finish the third chapter before 9 p.m. Chapter 3078. Dong Yuan's words were met with disdain. Innate divine strength? 500 kilograms of strength? 10,000 kilograms of strength? To the Taigu Emperor realm, this kind of strength was like an ant, not worth mentioning. Junior sister Yuan, how much strength can your innate divine strength cousin unleash in one punch? A Taigu Emperor realm youth asked in a provocative tone. Dong Yuan didn't dare to speak carelessly. After all, everyone here was a direct descendant of the sacred mountain. Those who didn't have a certain status couldn't enter this circle. Moreover, once Yi Qinghan's true strength was exposed, there would definitely be many people fighting over it. The sacred mountain wasn't peaceful either. Several elders were already fighting with each other. However, Sovereign Yi wasn't afraid of anything. At this moment, he replied proudly, I can crush you with one punch. Stinking brat, do you want to die? The youth reprimanded coldly with an ominous glint in his eyes. However, Sovereign Yi was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. He raised his eyebrows and asked in return, You're not allowed to speak the truth? My elder brother was born with innate divine strength. He killed a strength ghost beast with one punch. You? Even your master might not be a match for you. Hiss, Dong Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly pulled Sovereign Yi back, not allowing him to continue speaking. She quickly apologized. Senior brothers and sisters, please don't be angry. This cousin of mine hasn't seen much of the world and speaks without thinking. Everyone, please don't hold a grudge against him. Some people snorted coldly. If it weren't for Dong Yuan's face, they definitely wouldn't have been so polite. The sacred mountain was the strongest, so this kind of arrogance was normal. Yi Qinghan didn't look down on the E-God realm. After all, there weren't many forces like the Kuang Manor. If he died, the Kuang Manor might also become like this with the passage of time. Dong Qing saw that the situation was going out of control and hurriedly mediated. He said cheerfully, Everyone, don't ruin the atmosphere because of a child's words. We're gathered here today to celebrate the upcoming grace ceremony. Father God's once in 10,000 years grace ceremony is about to begin. It's not good to see blood. Otherwise, my master won't be happy. The great elder still had some face. As soon as Dong Qing mentioned the great elder's name, everyone shut their mouths and sat down. The ones sitting in the center were the strongest, the ones with the highest status, or one of the top 10 beauties. Dong Qing, the little god of fortune, the master apothecary, and the two progenitors were all second elder and third elder's men. In addition to the four beauties of Dong Yuan, Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were just about to sit next to Dong Yuan when they were forcefully pulled out by two young men. You two are really idiot. Is this table for the two of you to sit at? A gloomy youth angrily rebuked. Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi were both baffled. They looked around and realized that there were no more seats. However, there was a table in the corner that was completely unoccupied. Let's go. No one is sitting at that table. We can eat more, Yi Qinghan said calmly. He was not angry at all. Supremacy Yi shrugged. He reached out and grabbed the best divine fruits on the table. So be it. I don't care to sit in the center. Supremacy Yi walked to the corner disdainfully. The others looked at Supremacy Yi. This was not the first time this guy had caused trouble. They just wanted to see if Dong Qing and the others would flip out. The little god of fortune was indeed a rich man. In order not to offend Dong Yuan, he waved his hand and said indifferently, It's fine. Although there aren't many of these things, I can still afford them. Dong Yuan looked embarrassed. She lowered her head and bowed. Senior brother little god of fortune, sorry for the trouble. The little god of fortune did not have much, but he had a lot of money. His family's wealth was comparable to that of a country. Everyone was sitting in their seats, but there was a beautiful woman who kept glancing at the corner where Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi were. She was quite shrewd. She was the eldest princess of the Situ family, Situ Shuatong. She was ranked 5th among the top 10 beauties. She had been good at scheming all her life, and had never miscalculated. Situ Shuatang's eyes were big and round with long eyelashes, just like a snow doll. Her thin lips always carried a faint smile, while her eyes were constantly moving. Even though she was just sitting there, her eyes took everyone's emotions into consideration. The way Dong Yuan looks at Yi Qinghan is obviously different. It's a kind of greed and possessiveness. With her beauty and temperament, even Dong Qing might not be her final choice. She wouldn't want to possess a fool who has never cultivated, unless Yi Qinghan's so-called innate divine strength is really terrifying. Based on my observation just now, Yi Qinghan has delicate features, and there's a resolute and dignified look between his brows. It's impossible that he has never cultivated. Looking at the purity in the depths of his eyes, he's definitely not a fool. There's no doubt that this person is faking it. Situ Shuatong's lips curled up. She took a sip of the immortal wine. In just a few breaths of time, she had actually deduced everything. This kind of observation and calculation ability was unprecedented. Yi Qinghan also noticed Situ Shuatong out of the corner of his eye. Situ Shuatang and Yi Qinghan exchanged glances. Situ Shuatang actually smiled and nodded. However, her movement was very weak. No one else would have noticed that the 5th most beautiful woman in the world, Situ Shuatang, would smile and nod at a fool. Yi Qinghan was also shocked. Even with my exquisite performance, she actually saw through me. Was it a coincidence? Or was it a test? Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He acted even more like a fool. He ate without restraint and directly grabbed the food. He didn't want his plan to be ruined by a woman. The other people chatted about topics completely different from Yi Qinghan's social circle, so he didn't want to talk too much. Halfway through the meal, whoosh! Situ Shuatong actually stood up, picked up a cup of immortal wine, and walked directly to Yi Qinghan, who was sitting in the corner. Everyone was stunned. Many men thought that Situ Shuatong was walking towards them. They all stood up and greeted her with smiles. Unfortunately, all of them sat down awkwardly. Situ Shuatong walked gracefully with a smile on her face. She was devastatingly beautiful. Without looking sideways, she walked directly to the center of Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi. "Brother Yi, what's your name?" Situ Shuatong asked crisply. Supreme Sovereign Yi changed the topic and approached Situ Shuatong. He took a deep whiff of her fragrance and grinned. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you're so beautiful. I'm Supreme Sovereign Yi, Supreme Sovereign as in Supreme Sovereign. This is my big brother, Yi Qinghan. He's not very good with words, so if you have any questions, just ask me." Slap. Situ Shuatong reached out with her jade-like hands and pushed Sovereign Ye's face back. Her eyes never left Yi Qinghan's. She was trying to verify her conjecture. Yi Qinghan smiled foolishly and reached out to touch Situ Shuatong's jade-like fingers. He said honestly, "Beautiful big sister." "My name is Yi Qinghan." Situ Shuatong blushed and quickly retracted her hand. Bang! An ancestor realm expert was furious. Situ Shuatong was someone he had set his mind on. No one was allowed to touch her. Chapter 3079. That ancestor realm expert's status was no small matter. He was one of the 10 great elites of the younger generation, and had hopes of becoming the Holy Master's disciple in name. Even Dong Qing couldn't afford to offend him. Once he was enraged, the entire room fell into deathly silence. Dong Yuan's heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so bold. Dong Qing's face was also filled with dissatisfaction. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so lustful even though he was a little stupid. He actually dared to lust after the 5th-ranked Situ Shuatang. Such a blasphemous act was something he didn't dare to do. However, Situ Shuatong waved her hand and said, It's fine. Don't take it to heart. I'm the one who wants to chat with little brother Yi. Yi Qinghan didn't care at all. He stared at Situ Xuetong and smiled foolishly. Even a sage wouldn't suspect him. However, Situ Xuetong's deduction wasn't only based on Yi Qinghan's appearance, but also Dong Yuan's attitude. Situ Xuetong smiled and pressed down Yi Qinghan's hand while stroking Yi Qinghan's black hair with her other hand. Little brother Yi, don't be afraid. We're not hostile. This action made Chen Bei's eyes burn with anger. Situ Xuetong was so noble. When had she ever treated a man like this? Moreover, he was a fool. Situ Xuetong was very good at reading people. No matter how good Yi Qinghan's eyes were, he didn't change his appearance. With this unique appearance, as long as he wore slightly better clothes, no one would doubt that he was the sacred lord. Fortitude, vicissitudes, and domineering aura weren't just visible in his eyes. Situ Xuetong was now even more convinced of her deduction. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan grabbed the hand stroking his forehead and held it in place. He turned his head slightly and put his mouth on Situ Xuetong's hand. He sniffed lightly and said with an intoxicated expression, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you're so beautiful. With you here, I'm not afraid." Boom! Chen Bei was so angry that he couldn't control himself anymore. He shattered the table and stepped in front of Yi Qinghan, raising his hand to kill Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! But at that moment, Yi Qinghan took advantage of the situation and pretended to lie in Situ Xuetong's arms in fear. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, I'm scared." Yi Qinghan was deliberately trying to disgust Situ Xuetong. She was too clever, but her cleverness had backfired on her. Who were Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi? They were demon-level existences in the secondary universe. Even a sage would tremble if they stomped their feet. Supreme martial artist Yi clapped and cheered. "Wow, a talented man and a beautiful woman. Beautiful sister Bodhisattva and my big brother are a good match." Woo! Chen Bei was unable to kill Yi Qinghan. He was afraid that he would accidentally injure Situ Xuetong, so he changed the direction of his attack and slapped Supremacy Yi instead. The space was almost torn apart, and a vortex formed in the air. It even activated the defense of the entire restaurant. Whoosh! Supreme Yi pretended to jump in fright and hid under the table. He hugged Situ Xuetong's leg and said in fear, "Beautiful Bodhisattva sister, save me. There's a thief trying to kill your brother-in-law." Situ Xuetong froze on the spot. She did not know whether to move or not. Embarrassment and anger filled her face. "Chen Bei, it's all your fault." Whoosh! Situ Xuetong quickly stood up, but Yi Qinghan was lying in her arms. His face was completely stuck to the mountain peak, and there was no way to get rid of him. Supreme martial artist Yi was also hugging her slender leg, almost hanging on it. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, I'm scared." Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi cried out at the same time. Chen Bei's eyes were burning with killing intent. He was trembling all over, but the angrier he was, the closer Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi were to him. They were unwilling to let go. Situ Xuetong could not get rid of him, so she could not help but roar, "Chen Bei, get away from me." Chen Bei took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and immediately took a few steps back. "Why aren't you guys letting go?" Situ Xuetong had never lost control of her emotions before. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She wanted nothing more than to lift Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi up and throw them out. The fear on Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi's faces had yet to dissipate, which made Dong Yuan very unhappy. If Situ Xuetong had not deliberately gone to Yi Qinghan to tease him, Chen Bei would not have been so angry. If Chen Bei had not been angry, the two brothers would not have been so afraid. "Everyone, you're all rich and powerful. We lowly people can't afford to be friends with you. My cousin may be stupid, but I'm not. Situ Xuetong, don't act recklessly just because you're beautiful. You even teased a fool. Don't you feel ashamed?" Dong Yuan flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her relationship with Situ Xuetang was already bad, and today, it just happened to explode. She pulled Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Yi with her, and was about to walk out. Situ Xuetang had tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. She did not expect her verification to end up in such a humiliating situation. Chen Bei was even more furious. His murderous intent enveloped Yi Qinghan. You can leave if you want, but you have to leave behind every part of Sister Xuetang's body that the two of them touched. That face and that brat's hands, cut them off. Otherwise, I'll take their lives today, Chen Bei said coldly. Chen Bei did not care about Dong Yuan. He only wanted Situ Xuetang. The others were not worth mentioning. Dong Yuan could not help but look nervously at Dong Qing and the little god of fortune. If the two of them did not speak today, Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Yi would probably really die here. In the vicinity of Yishan Mountain, no one dared to offend Chen Bei, and no one dared to do so. Dong Qing was also extremely angry at Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Ye's actions. However, he could not blame Yi Qinghan entirely. Situ Xuetang clearly knew that Yi Qinghan was not smart enough, yet she still went to tease him. Wasn't that just asking for trouble? As for Chen Bei, he was the main culprit. How could he be so calculative with a child and a fool? Was this something a progenitor would do? Brother Chen, everyone is at fault here. Let's each take a step back and let the two of them apologize. Then, we'll forget about this matter. What do you think? Dong Qing suggested in a low voice. The murderous intent in Chen Bei's eyes had reached its peak. It was almost impossible to make him give in now. Impossible. Junior brother Dong Qing, you won't go against me for 2 ants, right? Chen Bei asked ambiguously. The corner of Dong Qing's mouth twitched. He had not expected that inviting Dong Yuan would cause such a huge conflict. The little god of fortune had an indifferent look on his face. It didn't matter to him who gave in and who didn't, so he shrugged his shoulders and said, "You guys are the ones who caused this, so you can discuss it among yourselves. However, I feel that we should be lenient wherever possible. Yi Qinghan wasn't in the wrong in the first place. What do you think? The cause is Junior Sister Xuetang, so let Junior Sister Xuetang make the decision." Situ Xuetang took a deep breath and looked at Chen Bei's angry eyes. She knew that he was jealous, but she could not blame him. After all, she also needed a few strong followers, and Chen Bei was one of them. As for Yi Qinghan, she still could not control him. However, in her heart, she warned herself that this person was definitely not that simple. All right, senior brother Chen Bei. This matter is my fault. I shouldn't have come. Don't be angry. I'll treat you to a meal alone another day as an apology, okay? Situ Xuetang said gently. Even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. Chen Bei was not a hero. He was even a layman. Since Situ Xuetang had said so, if he continued to cause trouble, it would be counterproductive. Today, for Junior Sister Xuetang's sake, I'll let the two of you go. Don't offend me again. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead, Chen Bei threatened coldly. Situ Xuetang's fingertips trembled slightly. She turned to look at Yi Qinghan's performance. Although his acting was superb, it could not escape her eyes. Yi Qinghan, I know you're not stupid. Tonight, we'll meet at the eastern peak outside the main city. If you dare not come, I'll make you regret it, Situ Xuetang secretly threatened. Yi Qinghan pretended not to know. He still looked terrified, which almost made Situ Xuetang explode. Chapter 3080. In the private room, because Situ Xuetang took the initiative to give in, Chen Bei had no choice but to give in. Dong Yuan then fled the private room with Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi in a sorry state. She was drenched in sweat and did not dare to stay for another moment. Whoosh dong, 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 Dong Yuan pulled the two of them and ran out of the inner city. Her jade peaks were trembling, and she had yet to react. You two are really daring. The strongest in our entire Dongi lineage is only at the peak of the progenitor realm. There are only 3 progenitors in the entire lineage. Chunbei and a few young people can destroy us. You two actually dared to provoke Situ Xuetang and Chunbei. You're really tired of living. You're not allowed to come out in the future, Dong Yuan said in a trembling voice. Supreme Yi rolled his eyes and snorted. What are you afraid of? My big brother's physical body is invincible and unparalleled. Those rookies are not even enough to be smashed by my big brother's fist. Dong Yuan smiled bitterly. You don't understand. They aren't just individuals. They represent the entire sacred mountain. A slight move in one part will affect the entire group. There are many people in their circle. If they are grouped together, offending one of them is equivalent to offending everyone. You also have to offend the elders of the sacred mountain. Don't be afraid. Be good. I was just teasing them. Who told that woman to bully me? Yi Qinghan pretended to be proud and comforted her. Dong Yuan was full of regret. She really should not have brought Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi out. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were in a good mood after teasing Situ Xuetang and Chunbei. At this moment, they were walking back proudly. However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan was also terrified. He could not have predicted that someone would be able to see through his identity, let alone that it was a woman. This B*TC. I must teach her a lesson tonight and let her know how powerful I am. Otherwise, she'll think that I'm easy to bully. A fierce light flashed in Yi Qinghan's eyes. The 3 of them had their own thoughts along the way. After wandering around the main city for a while, they returned to the inn where the Dongi lineage was. Both Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi Qinghan had their own rooms. Once they returned to their rooms, Yi Qinghan closed the doors and windows as he pondered. How did that little girl see through my problem? Why does she want to see me? Could it be that she has taken a liking to me? That shouldn't be the case. I haven't been handsome enough these few days. Yi Qinghan sighed softly. Yi Qinghan looked at himself in the mirror and stroked his chin. His eyes were flawless. If one were to really look at it, it would definitely be because of his flawless face. Being handsome is a sin. Yi Qinghan came to the conclusion that something must have gone wrong. Yi Qinghan lay on his bed, and his divine sense began to spread outwards, covering most of the outer city, and continuously extending deeper. However, the further he went, the more difficult it became. This was the world of the virtuous paragons, not the secondary universe. Wanting to use one's divine sense to cover hundreds of millions of kilometers was nearly impossible. If I go any deeper, I'm afraid I'll alarm the sages. Yi Qinghan secretly said to himself. I'm afraid I'll have to make a trip to Yishunshan. However, I've offended both Dongqing and Chunbei today. It seems that I'll have to go through Situ Xuetang. I just don't know if she'll be able to help me. Yi Qinghan silently pondered and decided to dress up again. If it really didn't work, then he would use the beauty trap. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while and decided to use the same old trick. Thus, he got up and dressed up. He was dressed in black, looking resolute and domineering. His masculine aura was not something an ordinary person could possess. The majesty and profoundness in the depths of his eyes were something that even the divine master of Yishunshan couldn't compare to. Yi Qinghan gently flicked the corner of his battle robe, looking incomparably confident. He had never lacked confidence in his appearance. Even if the Flame Emperor came, he would still dare to compete in this aspect. I don't believe there's a woman in this world that I can't charm. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into an arrogant smile. It was devilishly charming, enough to make a chaste woman submit. Night gradually descended. The moonlight was like water, and the shadows of the trees on both sides swayed with the breeze, looking exceptionally beautiful. Indeed, it was easy to destroy but difficult to rebuild. I hope that in the final battle, this place will still be a pure land. Venerable Ho-Yi sacrificed his life for peace. It's time for your son to enjoy it, Yi Qinghan muttered to himself as he sighed softly. Old ancestor, please protect me. The sun shooting immortal destroying bow is here. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes tightly and prayed silently. At this moment, he could only pray for the old ancestor's protection. Time passed silently. Yi Qinghan counted the time. Just after the second watch, the pitch-black night enveloped. As the saying went, the night of killing with a dark moon and a strong wind, the heavens worked beautifully. Whoosh! Only a few people remained clear-headed due to the soul shroud. No one was paying attention to their room. He gently opened the window and quietly disappeared. He circled around the outer city and instantly teleported 1,000 miles away. Yi Qinghan was currently in the southeast, but his destination was the azure peak directly in front of Ho-Yi's statue in the east. It was half a city away, more than 10,000 kilometers away. He advanced at a moderate pace. Situ Xuetong had arrived at this moment. However, she didn't stand out in the open and instead hid in the shadows, waiting for Yi Qinghan to appear. Humph, I don't believe that you won't reveal your foxtail today. Daring to pretend to be an idiot to trick people, you must be up to no good. Situ Xuetang muttered to herself. Her thin lips curled up as she confidently said, My predictions have never been wrong, and this time will be no different. You dared to embarrass me in front of so many people. If I don't make you kneel and beg for mercy today, I'll believe you. The beautiful mountain range stretched on endlessly with a vast expanse of mist. When the wind blew, the mist and dew sprinkled down and dripped onto Situ Xuetong's white robe. The scenery was picturesque, and the beauty was even more beautiful. Such a quiet night was indeed a good place and a good time to talk about love. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan didn't come here to talk about love. If there was a need, he would ruthlessly destroy the flowers. It was better than slaughtering the god Yi realm. Time passed bit by bit. The third watch was about to arrive. Situ Xuetong frowned and stared at the top of the mountain with her bright eyes. That was where the moonlight shone. As long as Yi Qinghan appeared, she would definitely notice him immediately. This brat actually didn't come. Is he trying to trick me? She snorted. At this moment, a figure appeared next to the rock where Situ Xuetang was lying on. He reached out and pulled the beautiful girl into his arms. He smiled and said, How could I not accept a beauty's invitation? Wouldn't I be ruining this beautiful scenery and beauty? Hiss! Situ Xuetong sucked in a breath of cold air. It was too late for her to escape because she couldn't control the laws of nature around her. She couldn't even summon any strength. Since you're here, why don't you have a good chat with me? How did you see through my identity? If you answer well, you'll be rewarded. Yi Qinghan hooked Situ Xuetong's chin with a devilish charm. His hoarse voice made one's hair stand on end. Only then did Situ Xuetong realize how big of a god she had offended. He was even more exaggerated than a sage. Who are you? Situ Xuetong asked in a trembling voice. Yi Qinghan smiled calmly and answered truthfully. I'm Yi Qinghan, the overworld primal universe's crazy manor lord. Now, it's time for you to answer my questions. 1 question per person, very fair. I can't use my computer during the day, so I stayed up late to write 2 chapters. The 3rd chapter will be very late. It'll probably be 11 at night. Let's not wait. Chapter 3081. Situ Xuetong's face was so pale that one could see her snow-white face even in the dark. You are an outsider. Situ Xuetang's face became even paler. Everyone in the E-Divine realm knew that outsiders were devils. Every time someone came, there would be a storm of blood. Yi Qinghan didn't know much about the history of the E-Divine realm, but he knew a bit about it. He lightly said, Don't worry, great beauty. Although I'm not a good person, I won't harm Ho-Yi's descendant because Ho-Yi is also one of my ancestors. He is an outsider, one of the ancestors of the third planet. I'm also from the third planet, so you know what I mean. Situ Xuetong didn't know about Ho Yi's background, so she didn't believe Yi Qinghan's words. What do you want to do in Yi Shin's realm? Why are you pretending to be crazy? Her voice trembled as she asked. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and pinched her beautiful face. You have so many questions. If you want to know more, you have to answer a few of mine. What do you want to know? Situ Xuetong's shoulders trembled in fear. Yi Qinghan calmly asked, How did you know that I was pretending? Because. Situ Xuetong didn't expect her speculation to cause so much trouble. She smiled wryly and said, I was only speculating. Dong Yuan's attitude towards you made me suspicious. Later on, I took a closer look. I saw the purity in the depths of your eyes and the aura and majesty that no one else had. I guessed that your identity wasn't ordinary, but I didn't think that you were an outsider. At most, I thought you were a young master from a hidden noble family who approached Dong Yuan in order to pursue her. Is that why you want to fight and take me away from her? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Gulp. Situ Xuetong swallowed her saliva and replied hesitantly, Yes, I'll tell you why I'm here. My goal is Godfather's sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. You don't have to tell me where the bow is, I'll tell you why I want it. Yi Qinghan stared at Situ Xuetong with an unprecedented seriousness and deepened his voice. The apocalypse is coming. Back then, Godfather and the ancestors of the third planet fought against all the virtuous paragons and saints from the secondary universe. Ho Yi, Godfather, and virtuous paragons paid a heavy price. Their lives were sacrificed while the others were heavily injured. Virtuous paragon Yuzun took advantage of the injuries of the 9 paragons to create the 9 divine cauldrons. He set up the 9 cauldrons formation and sealed the 9-star domain at the foundation of the primal universe. At the same time, he suppressed the 9 paragons in the 9 planet. She didn't know anything about Ho Yi's history. Perhaps even the Sacred Lord didn't know, so she was only shocked and confused at this moment. Do you understand? Yi Qinghan asked in a serious tone. Situ Xuetong was in a daze for a long time. She nodded before shaking her head. She looked at Yi Qinghan's serious expression and whispered, I understand, but why should I believe in this kind of history? Maybe you're just making it up? Humph! Yi Qinghan snorted and said with disdain, If I wanted to destroy the Yi-Divine realm, it wouldn't be difficult. However, all of you are the descendants and inheritors of Ho Yi. You and I are from the same root. I didn't want to massacre this place, so I had to sneak into the Yi-Divine mountain. Now, I'll tell you why I want the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. It's because the 9 paragons suppressed in the secondary universe are about to awaken. I need the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow to seriously injure them again. Only then can I seal or kill them. Otherwise, when they awaken, it won't be safe for you to hide here. Ordinary existences in the primal and secondary universes will be annihilated, and very few will survive. Hiss! Situ Xuetong took a deep breath. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan's goal to be so grand that it involved the survival of the entire universe. You're the savior of the world? Situ Xuetong looked at Yi Qinghan. If this person was really a hero, then he would be the best choice in a woman's heart. Yi Qinghan shrugged and replied with disdain, I'm not a hero. I was forced to defend myself because my arrogant sect was the first to bear the brunt of the 9 paragons awakening. Most importantly, I wanted to revive some people, so I had to kill these 9 paragons first. That's why I'm not a hero. All men wanted to be a hero in a woman's heart, but Yi Qinghan was a special case because he didn't want to be a hero at all. This surprised Situ Xuetong, but because of this, she was willing to believe that Yi Qinghan was telling the truth. Yi Qinghan looked at Situ Xuetong's surprised expression and explained, A hero who wants to be the savior of the world dies rather quickly. As for me, I only care about the arrogant sect brothers, not the world. Even if I did save the world, it would only be in passing. That's why I'm not a hero. You can call me a careerist hero or a ruthless hero. You are quite honest. Situ Shuatong smiled wryly. Yi Qinghan pinched her soft cheeks again and said with a grin, "Look at how honest I am with you. You have to be honest with me too. Otherwise, I'm going to make you meet me naked, without a single piece of clothing on." Situ Shuatong's face turned red as she angrily rebuked, "You're so despicable and shameless, I was wrong about you. It's not too late to get to know each other now." Yi Qinghan replied with a smile. Hiss, 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 whoosh, under the breeze, Situ Shuatong's breathing quickened. Her proud peaks trembled. She wanted to leave, but she couldn't. "Now tell me where the sun-shooting immortal destroyer bow is," Yi Qinghan calmly asked. His words were calm, but they were filled with the strictest of orders. Situ Shuatong didn't dare disobey. But the sun-shooting immortal destroyer bow was Father God's divine weapon. Although her status wasn't weak, she didn't have the right to know about it. I really don't know. Dong Qing might know." Situ Shuatong's voice trembled. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly, scaring Situ Shuatong so much that she began to tremble. "I really don't know. I'm just a woman. How could I know about this? No one in God Yi's realm dares to talk about this, and no one dares to covet Father God's divine weapon." Situ Shuatong explained in a panic. "Then tell me, has the sun-shooting immortal destroyer bow ever appeared in God Yi's realm?" Yi Qinghan asked again. Finally, Situ Shuatong gave an affirmative answer. She nodded and replied, "It did. The first time outsiders entered God Yi's realm, they caused a storm of blood. Sacred Lord had no choice but to ask for Father God's divine weapon. But after that, it never appeared again. Even during the Second Great War, when blood flowed like rivers, Father God's divine weapon never appeared again." Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't understand why Father God didn't ask for the sun-shooting immortal destroyer bow in the Second Great War. Did he lose it? Or could it be that Sacred Lord, he couldn't use it anymore? "I'll be busy tomorrow and the day after, so I can only update 2 chapters. Tomorrow's update will be in the afternoon. Today, I went to the exam room to try it out." Chapter 3082. Yi Qinghan wasn't able to use the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow for the second time, so he was mentally prepared. It would be fine if the Sacred Lord of Yishin Mountain couldn't use it, but if he lost it, then it would be a big problem. "I'll go up the Sacred Mountain to take a look. If I can't, then I'll see if I have a chance at the ceremony." Yi Qinghan murmured to himself before taking a deep breath. He saw the panicked Situ Shuatong's eyes darting around as if she was trying to think of a way to escape. He knew that she didn't trust him. Whether he could go up the sacred mountain or not depended on her, so he had to gain her trust. Yi Qinghan glanced at her face and stared into her eyes. He knew that she wasn't a bad person at heart. She only wanted to suppress Dong Yuan. "Miss Situ, help me this time. I'll take you to see the origin universe," Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. "This time, you're not just helping me, you're also helping the E-God realm, and more importantly, you're helping yourself. You're also not letting Godfather Ho Yi's efforts go to waste." Situ Shuatong's fingertips trembled. It was rare to see Yi Qinghan with such a serious expression. Yi Qinghan at this moment truly had the spirit and majesty of a great hero. No one could refuse him. "How can I help you?" she quietly asked. Yi Qinghan held her shoulders and looked down at her. "Take me to the sacred mountain. I want to make sure that the bow is there. If it is, I'll go find the sacred lord myself because I might not be able to use it. If I want to seriously injure the 9 paragons again, the sacred lord will have to personally take action. Don't worry, I'm definitely not lying to you. Once I find out that the immortal bow is on the sacred mountain, I'll definitely meet the sacred lord and tell him the truth." You can take the bow to the primal universe and a virtuous paragon will tell you the truth. Yi Qinghan added. She helplessly said, well, I have no reason to take you to the sacred mountain. Not just anyone can go up there. Yi Qinghan looked at Situ Xuetang and firmly said, think of a way. If I can't get the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow, everyone will be finished. Situ Xuetang's fingertips trembled slightly, and her breathing became uneven. The look in her eyes was complicated, filled with wariness and distrust. However, she had concealed it. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell, but Yi Qinghan could. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan didn't dare to take the risk. If Situ Xuetang exposed herself, it would definitely be a fierce battle. He immediately sat down cross-legged on the ground and said calmly, enter the depths of my soul. I will share my soul memories with you. What? Situ Xuetang stared at Yi Qinghan in shock. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have even dared to think about it. It was simply impossible. Even if that person's cultivation level was one level higher, they might still be killed. After all, when sharing souls, there was no defense. A weak soul couldn't possibly withstand the attack of a progenitor. Not only was Situ Xuetang one of the top 5 beauties, but she was also a progenitor. Even though she had just entered the progenitor realm, her cultivation was still extraordinary. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Situ Xuetang took a deep breath and asked in a low voice. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and said calmly, if you don't trust someone, don't use them. If I didn't want to talk to you, you would have died the moment I appeared. His Situ Xuetang was stunned by Yi Qinghan's boldness. She felt that his self-evaluation was not wrong. This was a formidable person. Come in, Yi Qinghan said firmly. At this moment, Yi Qinghan let go of his soul and completely relaxed, leaving his fate in Situ Xuetang's hands. Although Situ Xuetang was suspicious of Yi Qinghan, if it was true and she killed him now, Yixin realm would definitely suffer a devastating blow, not only from the 9 great sages, but also from Kuang Manor. Whoosh! Her soul fused with Yi Qinghan's soul. Only then did she realize how powerful Yi Qinghan was. His soul was far beyond the progenitor realm. He's so young, but he's already a sage. Whoosh! Situ Xuetang couldn't believe it. Yi Qinghan's age was at most the same as hers. This wasn't based on appearance, but the way cultivators determined age. Whoosh! The 2 souls fused. Situ Xuetang had a defensive layer, but Yi Qinghan didn't. Situ Xuetang saw through Yi Qinghan from his earliest days to the peak countless years later. Yi Qinghan's past shocked Situ Xuetang. This was an epic history book, even more legendary than the Sacred Lords. The memories of the 3rd planet appeared, as did Yu Zun's words. After a while, Situ Xuetang understood that Yi Qinghan wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. Thump, 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 Situ Xuetang was alarmed. Her heart was beating much faster than before, and her face was red. She looked at Yi Qinghan again with a strange feeling. Even though she knew that Yi Qinghan had several wives, her heartstrings were still tugged. Women all liked heroes, and Yi Qinghan was definitely one. Situ Xuetang's fingers trembled as she withdrew from Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. The emotions in her eyes were clearly different. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and slowly stood up with his back facing Situ Xuetang. His hands were behind his back, and a gentle breeze blew his black hair. Under the moonlight, his aura was particularly powerful. I respect Hou-Yi, so I don't dare to make things difficult for his descendants. I hope you can help me this once. I don't want to make a move against someone from the sacred mountain, Yi Qinghan said with a serious tone. Under the moonlight, the shadow was very long, and the wind was starting to get cold. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The branches rustled, creating a beautiful scene. At this moment, Situ Xuetang couldn't describe her feelings. Her heart had already left the outer realm and entered the origin universe. She wanted to be like Kuang Fu, conquering the four directions and shattering all the laws and laws of the origin universe. She wanted to reform the world and make the world submit. Even a soldier from Quang Fu could intimidate a city lord. Yi Qinghan waited for a long time while Situ Xuetong was lost in her thoughts. He turned around and saw her infatuated gaze at his back. He couldn't help but reveal a charming smile. He reached out to lift her chin and said with a hoarse voice, "Beauty Xuetong, I hope that your heart is as pure as snow and as sweet as candy. Be the savior and save the world, save yourself, and save me once." Situ Xuetong's face turned even redder. She subconsciously nodded and said, "Yes, yes, I'll help you, I'll definitely help you." Yi Qinghan smiled and reached out to hug her soft shoulders. "Be good, a beauty like you should be #1 in the world." Situ Xuetong couldn't resist Yi Qinghan's praise. She lowered her head and buried it deep in her own mountain. "Tomorrow, I will ask Father to introduce me to the alchemy god elder. I hope that he can personally treat your internal injury. His Excellency has a high status and definitely won't leave the mountain in person. That way, you will have a chance to enter the sacred mountain." Situ Xuetong gently said. The next chapter will be updated at 11 p.m. Chapter 3083. It was late at night and dawn was approaching. The entire world was plunged into darkness. Yi Qinghan looked up and said, "The day after tomorrow, I'll wait for you at the Autumn Water Inn in the southeast. I'll leave Dong Yuan with you then. Tomorrow, do your best to make sure I can reach Sacred Mountain." At this moment, Situ Xuetong had completely surrendered. She only wanted to help Yi Qinghan. "All right. Wait for my good news." She nodded. Whoosh. The void distorted and Yi Qinghan left. Whoosh. Situ Xuetong was full of ambition and wanted to be the savior of the world. "Watch me tomorrow." Situ Xuetong smiled gently and said firmly. After that, Situ Xuetong also left Green Peak. An hour later, dawn arrived. It was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers. Yi Qinghan quietly returned through the window without alerting anyone. The next day, eastern region of Sacred Mountain, Situ Estate. Situ Xuetong appeared outside the main hall of the Situ Estate with a rosy face. The hall was golden with jade dragon and phoenix statues on both sides. It was very majestic. A dignified middle-aged expert sat in the hall. He was on the verge of becoming a sage and possessed monstrous strength. He had slanted eyebrows, a square face, and eyes that were full of pressure. No one dared to blaspheme his dignity. He was the new head of the Situ Estate, Situ Gang. Though he hadn't been in the position for long, he was enough to intimidate the entire Yishun world and convince everyone. He was also Situ Xuetong's father. "Father!" Situ Xuetong smiled shyly and stepped into the hall. Situ Gang looked up. This was the first time he saw such an expression on Situ Xuetong's face. He withdrew his dignity and teased, "Good girl, this is the first time I've seen you blush. Tell me, which young master have you taken a fancy to and I'll hand you over." Situ Gang's voice was like a great bell, reverberating through the hall. Although he seemed to be joking, the truth was that there was a bit of reluctance and anger in his eyes. He had worked so hard to raise this flower, and now it was going to be taken away by someone else? "Father, you're spouting nonsense again. This time, I have something that I need your help with. I have a friend whose soul has been injured and even the master apothecary can't heal it. So, I want to ask you to speak up and let the master apothecary elder heal my friend." Situ Xuetong stomped her feet and said coquettishly, "Daddy, you have to help. This friend is very important to me." Situ Gang was not a fool. At this time, if he was not sure that his daughter was in love, then he would be too stupid. In an instant, the atmosphere in the hall became abnormally solemn. Whoosh! Situ Gang waved his hand and several figures retreated. Only the father and daughter were left in the hall. Situ Gang stared at Situ Shuetang, took a deep breath, adjusted his state of mind, and asked calmly, "Tell me, whose child is she?" "Someone who can make my daughter's heart flutter can't be ordinary. I don't think you need to ask Brother Apothecary for help, right?" Situ Shuetang looked at the serious Situ Gang and pouted. "Father, he's not from a big family, but he's handsome, dignified, and born with divine strength. He's a cultivation genius. It's a pity that his soul is injured and he's a bit mentally retarded. I only asked you to help because I love him. Bring him to see me. I want to see what kind of idiot he is to make my daughter see him in a different light. If he's not bad, I'll help him once. If not, I'll kill him," Situ Gang said solemnly. Situ Shuetang's pupils shrank. Looking at her father's serious expression, she knew that he was not joking. While he's in disguise, can he fight father to a draw with his physical body alone? Situ Shuetang was unsure. If Yi Qinghan was forced to reveal his true identity, then the entire Yishen realm would be plunged into a sea of fire. All right. Situ Shuetang was not sure, but in order to let Yi Qinghan enter the sacred mountain, she had to agree. Whoosh! Whoosh! Situ Shuetang shot into the sky, crossing half the city. After half a day, she appeared in the southeast. At this moment, Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were committing evil everywhere. They entered one large divine treasure store after another, challenging the Dongi tribe's bottom line and choosing incomparably valuable items. Unable to take it anymore, Dongi Luan roared, "Can you have some sense of propriety? Are these things you should be buying?" Yi Qinghan wanted to leave, so he purposely created this opportunity. He then glanced at Sovereign Yi. "Damn, if you can't afford it, just say so. Boss, let's go." Sovereign Yi waved his hand, preparing to leave. When Dong Yuan heard this, she hurriedly pulled Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi away. Gently, she said, "Don't mess around. What's going on today? Why do you want those things? They're too expensive. We Dongi can't afford them at all." Yi Qinghan felt a little guilty, but he had no choice. If he wanted to enter the holy mountain, Dong Yuan definitely couldn't help. He could only rely on Situ Shuetang. "My big brother's soul is injured. Of course he wants some treasures. Beautiful Bodhisattva, we don't blame you. It's our incompetence. We won't drag you down," Sovereign Yi said seriously. Dong Yuan smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi's tastes were getting bigger and bigger. Some things were really not something her family could afford. "Sovereign, Brother Yi, those things are useless for your injuries. It's a waste to buy them. Let's not buy them, okay? I'll accompany you to other areas?" Dong Yuan comforted gently. "No need, beautiful Bodhisattva. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come to us directly. However, Big Brother and I are leaving. We can't bear some people's temper," Sovereign Yi said proudly. Yi Qinghan's expression was very angry, as if he had been insulted. He pulled Sovereign Yi away from the divine treasure store. At this moment, Situ Shuetang appeared near the divine treasure store. Yi Qinghan had already noticed her. Situ Shuetang went to the door. Seeing Yi Qinghan's angry expression and Dong Yuan's anxious expression, she immediately said provocatively, "Oh, junior sister Yuan, what a coincidence." Dong Yuan was furious when she saw Situ Shuetang. If it weren't for the difference in status, she would have already turned hostile. Therefore, she snorted coldly and did not reply. Instead, she went to Yi Qinghan's side and grabbed his hand. She pleaded, "Brother Yi, don't go. I'll definitely get someone to heal your soul injury. It was third uncle's fault today. I apologize on his behalf." Without waiting for Yi Qinghan's reply, Situ Shuetang crossed her arms and said as if she was watching a show, "So Brother Yi was bullied by Dongi. Brother Yi, if this small temple can't accommodate you, why don't you come to my Situ family? My Situ family has a lot of business. I can satisfy you with whatever you want. I can also get the medicine god to heal your soul personally." Sovereign Yi already knew about Yi Qinghan's plan. His eyes lit up as he asked excitedly, "Really? Then we'll go with you." Dong Yuan panicked when she heard this. She pulled Yi Qinghan and glared at Sidu Shuetang. She and Sidu Shuetang's beauty ranking was very close, so she often wanted to suppress her. If she let Yi Qinghan leave with Sidu Shuetang today, she would lose all her face. Moreover, Yi Qinghan's strength was extraordinary. She couldn't bear to let him go. "Situ Shuetang, what are you trying to do? This has nothing to do with you. Please leave." Dong Yuan hurriedly reprimanded. Sidu Shuetang twisted her waist slightly and pulled Yi Qinghan to her side. She said disdainfully, "This isn't your home. Why should I leave? Besides, in terms of cultivation, beauty, or family background, how can you compare to me? You can't even protect what I want." Yi Qinghan laughed foolishly. "So it's the beautiful Bodhisattva. Thank you for protecting me yesterday. I'm willing to go with you." Dong Yuan almost cried when she heard this. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan to leave just like that. "There's an official exam tomorrow, so I don't have time to update. I don't dare to stay up tonight. I'll probably only be home at 10 p.m. tomorrow, so don't wait for me tomorrow. Sorry." Chapter 3084. Yi Qinghan looked at Dong Yuan's helpless expression and felt a little embarrassed. He had given her hope, but now he had crushed it with his own hands. He could understand how she felt. However, Yi Qinghan had no choice but to leave with Situ Shuetang in order to confirm the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. In the end, Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi left with Situ Shuetang under Dong Yuan's gaze. Whoosh! Whoosh! Situ Shuetang left with Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi. However, the news of Situ Shuetang snatching Yi Qinghan from Dong Yuan spread like wildfire. In the battle between the two beauties, Situ Shuetang had emerged victorious, further cementing her position as number 5. Her strongest follower, Chun Bei, was the first to find out about Situ Shuetang's matter. In the sacred mountain, Chun Bei's courtyard was filled with murderous intent. Boom! Chen Bei slammed his palm on the hard stone table, shattering it into pieces. "Yi Qinghan, you're courting death." Chen Bei glared ahead and clenched his fist. His murderous intent shrouded the surroundings. Even the disciple who passed him the message was so frightened that he didn't dare to move. "Where did Shuetang take those two?" Chen Bei asked coldly as he looked at the young disciple. "Senior brother Chen Bei, they're almost at the Situ residence." "Senior brother, I really don't understand why senior sister Shuetang is paying attention to those two idiots. Is she really just trying to suppress Dong Yuan?" The young disciple said flatteringly. "It's senior sister Shuetang's loss that she didn't choose you." Chen Bei stared coldly at the disciple. He hated it when people talked about Situ Shuetang, and he hated it even more when people said that Situ Shuetang didn't choose him. "There are some things you'd better not say." "Leave," Chen Bei reprimanded coldly. The disciple trembled in fear and immediately left respectfully. Chen Bei's figure flashed and left the sacred mountain, heading straight for the canyon southeast of the Situ residence. That was the only way to get to the Situ residence from the southeast. He wanted to kill Yi Qinghan there. Many people were coming and going in the canyon. After all, there wasn't much danger in the sacred mountain. Chen Beidu used stellar transposition and appeared at the top of the canyon, overlooking the southeast. "There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you insist on coming." Chen Bei took a deep breath, and a pair of golden gloves appeared on his fist. These were the most famous Yishin dragon boxing gloves of the Yishin world, and there were a total of 10 of them. They were at the level of the false sage, and they could increase the strength of an ancestor by tens of times. Chen Bei was definitely stronger than Situ Shuetang. He was almost on par with Situ Gang. He was one of the 5 strongest elites of the younger generation. Even though he hadn't become the last disciple of the Sacred Mountain's sacred leader, it was already set in stone. Chen Beifeng was as divine as jade, but there was a vicious aura between his brows. When he saw the fluctuations of progenitor realm power in the distance, he knew that Situ Xuetong was about to arrive. Xuetang, no matter what you want to do, you shouldn't have angered me, Chen Bei muttered to himself. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ripples appeared in the stable space of the world of the virtuous sage. A moment later, 3 figures appeared side by side, appearing at the end of the canyon in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! Situ Xuetong landed outside the canyon. After passing through the canyon, it would only take a moment for her to reach the Situ residence. Therefore, she wanted to walk back and give some instructions to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's divine sense swept over and found Chen Bei. He couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't want to get into a conflict with the people of the sacred mountain. Sovereign Yi also noticed the murderous look on Chen Bei's face. He couldn't help but ask, "Boss, should I secretly suppress him first so that he won't delay our plans?" Yi Qinghan shook his head and replied, "No need. I'll do it myself. Perhaps Situ Xuetong will be able to persuade him to leave." Situ Xuetong didn't notice Chen Bei. When she reached the center, Chen Bei's figure flashed and blocked the 3 of them. The murderous aura on his body made the surrounding people retreat, not daring to approach the canyon. At that moment, Situ Gang of the Situ residence had already received the news. He stood in the distance and coldly looked over, observing Chen Bei and Yi Qinghan. When Situ Xuetong saw Chen Bei's expression, she immediately frowned and said, "Senior brother Chen Bei, what are you doing?" "Xuetong, can you explain to me why you brought these 2 here? You know that I hate it when these 2 come into contact with you," said Chen Bei in a deep voice. Situ Xuetong immediately responded with dissatisfaction, "Senior brother, I have the freedom to make friends. You and I are just friends. I hope you understand and don't interfere with my freedom." "Friends? Just friends?" Chen Bei's fingertips trembled and he clenched his fists. The laws of the Yishun dragon-subduing gauntlets radiated in all directions, and his murderous aura grew even stronger. "Yes, just friends. At least I think of you as a friend," said Situ Xuetong straightforwardly. Chen Bei took a deep breath and stared at Yi Qinghan. He said coldly, "Yi Qinghan, I heard that you were born with divine strength. I'd like to see it for myself. If you can take a punch from me, I'll turn around and leave. From then on, I'll avoid you whenever I see you." The idiocy in Yi Qinghan's eyes didn't disappear. In fact, there was still fear in them. The more Chen Bei looked at him, the angrier he became. He didn't expect to lose to a fool when it came to pursuing a woman. Situ Xuetong looked at Yi Qinghan and was somewhat worried. She knew how strong Yi Qinghan was, but he was pretending to be a fool and couldn't use law power. How could he fight against a super expert like Chen Bei? Yi Qinghan seemed to be gathering his courage. He walked forward resolutely and said in a muffled voice, "Just one punch." "Yes, just one punch. If you die, you can't blame me." Chen Bei's killing intent surged as he focused all his strength on his right fist. Light shot out in all directions as law power enveloped him. He didn't want to test Yi Qinghan's strength. He wanted to kill Yi Qinghan. Supreme Sovereign Yi sneered and pulled Situ Xuetang back until they left the canyon. At that moment, Situ Gang was also staring at them. Chen Bei didn't notice him, but Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi knew that he was hiding nearby. Ka, Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. The little white cloud turned into a fist and embedded itself into his flesh, completely fusing with him. This punch could shatter the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. However, how could Yi Qinghan kill Chen Bei? Therefore, he observed Chen Bei's strength and didn't use his full strength. About 70%. Chen Bei's peak strength was equivalent to Yi Qinghan's full strength. However, with the little white cloud's support, Chen Bei wouldn't be in danger if he used 70% of his strength. However, He would definitely lose. Whoosh! The surrounding air flow became unstable and began to form a vortex. Boom boom boom. Woo woo woo, astral winds violently attacked. Whoosh! Chen Bei moved. His fist carried the order of laws and annihilated everything. Even the mountain rocks were ignited. The huge fist was enough to shatter the stable space of the virtuous sage world. Yi Qinghan moved his toes and gathered power at his waist. It traveled to his limbs and bones, and finally gathered on his right fist. The majestic power shook the mountains and rivers, and even the canyon trembled. Bang! Yi Qinghan met it with a punch. The seemingly mortal fist couldn't withstand a single blow, but when it collided with Chen Bei's gloves, the power was unstoppable. It directly entered the gloves and sent Chen Bei flying out of the canyon. Ah, poof! Chen Bei's right arm was twisted. The bones in his hand were dripping with blood, staining the gloves red. A shrill scream filled the sky. Hiss hiss hiss, Sidugang, who was standing not far away, almost fell down in fright from Yi Qinghan's punch. He kept sucking in cold air, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. There were no fluctuations of the order of laws. It was purely physical strength. Sidugang's realm had almost merged into the sage realm, so he saw it the clearest. Chapter 3085. Outside the canyon, Chen Bei's arm was broken, but the Ishan's dragon-subduing gauntlet wasn't damaged in the slightest. Blood flowed freely as he retreated several thousand meters, all the way out of the canyon. If this wasn't the world of virtuous paragons, the entire canyon would have been destroyed. Thud, thud, thud. The rocks beneath Chen Bei's feet were crushed, and his leg bones were twisted. Even after retreating so far, he still knelt down. Yi Qinghan deliberately retreated more than 10 steps to hide his true strength. He didn't want Sidugang to suspect that someone could defeat an ancestor with innate physical strength. Hiss, 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 Sidugang took a deep breath, his fingertips trembling. How is this possible? Innate divine strength? Even father's son might not be able to do this. Sidugang muttered to himself with a trembling voice. Inside and outside the canyon, there was a deathly silence. There were still many people standing outside the canyon. They had wanted to leave through the canyon, but they had been blocked outside and had just witnessed this punch. Chen Bei, ranked 5th among the top 10 youths of the Ishan world, had been defeated with a single punch, and even knelt on the ground. This had never happened before. Chen Bei was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His eyes were bloodshot, and his right hand was crippled. He couldn't even lift it. Impossible! How can there be such a freakish physical body? He didn't use any law power, and I actually lost to an idiot. Chen Bei raised his head slightly, his eyes filled with death. His Tao heart had collapsed, and his battle intent and killing intent had dissipated. Without a miracle, he was destined to become a cripple. Chen Bei looked at the distant Yi Qinghan. He wasn't injured, and his foolish eyes and victorious smile were filled with despair. At this time, Supremacy Yi and Situ Xuetong returned to the canyon and stood beside Yi Qinghan. Situ Xuetong looked at this scene and reevaluated Yi Qinghan's strength. His peak strength probably far surpasses ordinary sages. No wonder he could save the world. Situ Xuetong muttered to herself, and the admiration in her eyes grew stronger, but it disappeared in a flash. Huff, 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 only the sound of rapid breathing could be heard in the canyon. Although Yi Qinghan looked like an idiot, his appearance was even more handsome than Chen Bei's. Only the idiocy in his eyes ruined his temperament. Otherwise, he would have been a hero of a generation. Sidugang stood in the distance and observed carefully, his brows furrowed. Is this person really a fool? Look at the majesty between his brows. If his eyes were covered, I dare say that none of the 10 great heroes in the world would be his match. Sidugang muttered to himself. If his daughter, Situ Xuetang, was so good at reasoning, how could his intelligence be weak? Phew! Situ Gang exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and muttered to himself, "It seems that I have to ask the divine alchemist elder to take action. At the very least, I have to find out if this person's soul is seriously injured and if he is truly an idiot." At this time, Situ Gang's figure flashed and appeared in the valley. He looked majestic as he stared at Yi Qinghan and Situ Xuetong. "Take them to the Situ estate. I'm going to see the alchemy elder." Situ Xuetong was overjoyed. She quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, father." Situ Gang didn't say much. He turned and walked out of the valley. He helped Chen Bei up and whispered, "Nephew Chen Bei, victory and defeat are common in war. Don't let this ruin your Dao heart. I dare not say that I can defeat this person. Besides, you are still young. If you become the Sacred Lord's personal disciple in the future, defeating him is only a matter of time. If you give up now, you won't be able to beat him even if you use 100 words." Chen Bei took a deep breath and stood up with trembling legs. He bowed and said, "Uncle, thank you for your advice. I understand. Don't worry. What is yours will always be yours. If it is not yours, you can't take it away. Let nature take its course. We will know within 3 years. Shui Tang is indeed fond of talent. Do you understand?" Situ Gang reminded him in a low voice. "In fact, the Situ family has recognized you as a son-in-law from the beginning. I hope you won't disappoint me." Chen Bei became excited when he heard this. He bowed and said, "Uncle, don't worry. I won't give up. I will return this punch within 3 years." Situ Gang was also a very smart person. Chen Bei was one of the personal disciples that the Sacred Lord was evaluating. Even if they couldn't become family in the future, he didn't want to be enemies with Chen Bei. "I will go see the medicine god elder. You go back and calm down. Don't go looking for Shui Tang. At least, don't do it for now. It won't do you any good," Situ Gang whispered. With Situ Gang's support, Chen Bei's confidence increased greatly. At least, he calmly looked at Situ Xuetong and immediately left. Whoosh! Whoosh! After Chen Bei left, Situ Gang sped up and rushed to the sacred mountain. On the sacred mountain, the medicine god's government peak was filled with immortal herbs. The spirit chi here was almost the best. Perhaps even the Sacred Lord's peak was inferior. In the medicine god's hall, a white-haired old man was refining pills. A medicine cauldron was filled with patterns. The fragrance inside filled the air. The sacred medicine was about to be born. This was the medicine god's best pill, the Heaven Sage pill. It was a sage-level pill that specialized in repairing the soul of sages. It was priceless. Every Heaven Sage pill had a price but no market. The medicine god's white hair fluttered without wind. He formed a seal with both hands. The heavenly fire in the cauldron became gentle and the pill quickly condensed. Whoosh! As soon as the divine pill was formed, it began to erupt with pressure. The chi rushed into the galaxy and a vision appeared. Situ Gang entered the medicine god's peak and knew that the medicine god was condensing the pill. He didn't dare to disturb him and waited outside the hall. About an hour later, the medicine god walked out with a smile. He was in a good mood because this Heaven Sage pill was more perfect. "Nephew Situ, what brings you here today?" the medicine god asked with a smile. Situ Gang's father, Situ Yu, and the medicine god were brothers in the same sect, so they had a good relationship. Situ Gang hurriedly bowed and replied, "Uncle Medicine God, I'm here today to ask for a favor. I'm in a good mood today. Just say what you need," the medicine god replied with a smile. Situ Gang immediately replied, "Uncle Medicine God, a very special guest came to our house. His soul was injured. Your disciple, the medicine master, personally took action, but he couldn't repair his soul. The key is that this person was born with divine strength. He didn't use any law or order power and only relied on his physical body to defeat me. So I'd like to ask you to treat him. It's a pity if such a talent is wasted. I don't know if you have the time, so I didn't dare to bring him here directly. The medicine god was surprised when he heard this. He knew Situgang's strength very well. It was unbelievable that he could defeat him with just his physical body. Interesting. I've never seen such a weirdo. Bring him here and let me see, the medicine god said with a smile. Situgang was overjoyed when he heard this. He hurriedly thanked the medicine god and left the medicine god's peak. Chapter 3086. In the main hall of the Situ residence, only Yi Qinghan, Supreme Yi, and Situ Xuetong were waiting anxiously. Today, Situgang's group would determine whether he could ascend the sacred mountain and determine the location of the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan looked at the entrance of the main hall. He was very nervous and kept breathing deeply. His eyes stared into the distance and his consciousness wandered. As soon as Situgang returned, he would find him. Brother Yi, don't worry. My father has a good relationship with the divine alchemist elder. The main thing is that my grandfather is his brother. My father's advancement to the sage realm is already set in stone because the divine alchemist elder agreed to help, Situ Xuetong said firmly. Yi Qinghan laughed at himself. He did not expect that his state of mind was still not enough. When it came to such a big matter, he could not calm down. However, it did not take long for Situgang to return to the Situ residence. Yi Qinghan immediately retracted his aura. The dullness in his eyes reappeared. Even a sage would not notice that there was a wound in the depths of his soul. Divine bird, don't go. I'll go to the sacred mountain myself, Yi Qinghan ordered firmly. Wherever the divine bird went, there would be chaos. Even Yi Qinghan could not keep an eye on it. It could cause a big problem at any time. Supreme Yi shrugged and rolled his eyes. He slumped in his chair, bored and helpless. He still wanted to go to the sacred mountain to get some good stuff. Yi Qinghan's decision was obviously the best. If Supreme Yi went, it would be easy to expose the problem. Whoosh! Situgang appeared in the main hall and looked at Yi Qinghan with a dignified face. There was a little satisfaction in his eyes, but there were also many doubts and vigilance. If Yi Qinghan's identity was not a problem, he would definitely be the ideal son-in-law. With such divine power and first-class appearance, there was nothing to be picky about. Yi Qinghan, come with me. I'll take you to the sacred mountain to see the divine alchemist elder, Situgang said seriously. Situ Xuetong was overjoyed and quickly said, Father, I'll go too. His soul is injured and he can't differentiate between friend and foe. If I go, he won't be disrespectful to the medicine god elder. Situgang frowned slightly. Yi Qinghan was too strong. If he suddenly went berserk and beat up the divine medicine elder, it would be a disaster. Okay. Situgang nodded and agreed to Situ Xuetong's request. Situ Xuetong looked at Supreme Yi and said softly, Supreme Yi, stay in the mansion. Ask the servants for whatever you want to eat, but don't cause any trouble. It wouldn't be good if you disturb grandfather. Supreme Yi licked the corner of his mouth and nodded repeatedly. Before Yi Qinghan left, he gave Supremacy Yi a warning and secretly transmitted his voice. No matter what treasure you see, you have to endure it. Right now, nothing is more important than the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. Sovereign Yi didn't dare to disobey Yi Qinghan's decision, and could only agree. Let's go, Situgang said calmly. Whoosh! Clatter clatter, the three of them left the Situ estate. Situgang, Yi Qinghan, and Situ Xuetong's figures flickered. In an instant, they were 1,000 miles away, not far from Ho Yi's statue at the foot of the sacred mountain. After arriving, no one dared to fly. Everyone respectfully paid their respects and walked towards the sacred mountain. Yi Qinghan looked up at the giant statue of Ho Yi. It was holding a giant bow with a domineering aura that could pierce through the firmament. The reverence in his heart grew stronger and stronger. After bowing to the statue for a bit, the three walked towards the holy mountain. The holy mountain was towering and shrouded in immortal mist. Immortal trees stood side by side, shrouded in purple energy. This was a rare paradise. This sacred mountain wasn't just one mountain, it was actually surrounded by nearly 100 peaks. There were more than 30 main peaks, and each peak had a sage presiding over it. The sages here were either Ho Yi's children or inheritors, so they had high statuses. The master of the main peak was Ho Yi's grandson. One of the previous two masters had died in battle. The first sage had left God Yi's realm and had yet to return. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Medicine God Peak was the sixth main peak in the southwest of Sacred Master Peak. It was densely covered with formations and experts. Strangers couldn't even get close to the foot of the mountain. Moreover, there was more than one sage overseeing this place. Medicine God Elder Bu En had many experts, and a few of them had become sages. In order to repay his kindness, they stayed at Medicine God Peak to protect him. Yi Qinghan followed Situ Gang into the vicinity of Medicine God Peak. Before his divine sense spread out, he sensed no less than 3 sages and no less than 10 peak progenitor experts. They were all extremely low-key and hid in all directions of Medicine God Peak. Their auras were indistinct. If it wasn't for his powerful soul, he probably wouldn't have noticed any of them. The little white cloud enveloped his body and strengthened his soul by dozens of times. It was stronger than the souls of the sages. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and spirit energy drilled into his body. It was vast and majestic, and the immortal energy almost turned into liquid. Immortal realm, Yi Qinghan secretly muttered. He was shocked by the virtuous paragon world. This place was many times stronger than his own wild martial world. Situ Xuetang was also excited. This was a treasure ground and she couldn't enter that many times. Only a few elders could enter at will. The disciples of the other peaks had to apply before they could enter. Yi Qinghan pretended to be afraid. He held Situ Xuetang's hand and closed his eyes. He spread out his divine sense and approached Sacred Master Peak. He wanted to determine the location of the sun-shooting, immortal exterminating bow. The immortal bow in his body also released some weak energy, hoping to resonate with the bow. There were experts on each peak. The slightest carelessness would lead to him being discovered. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to move his soul wantonly. Every step he took was hair-raising. He was especially careful. After a long time, his soul spread out on Sacred Master Peak. There was a huge Dao Plaza at the top of Sacred Master Peak. Many disciples were cultivating inside, but there were formations everywhere that could be easily activated. "Did you find it?" Situ Xuetang whispered. Yi Qinghan pressed her warm little hand, indicating that she shouldn't speak carelessly. His soul condensed stronger and stronger. He even began to mobilize the laws and principles of the virtuous paragon world. However, this was not a secondary universe, so he could only mobilize a small amount. Yi Qinghan frowned and approached the main hall of Sacred Master Peak. However, as soon as he got close, he was blocked by the seals and runes. His soul couldn't penetrate. Whoosh! After his soul was blocked, Yi Qinghan quickly withdrew it. He didn't probe further. After all, it was too dangerous. "I can't enter Sacred Master Peak. The walls, windows, and doors are all sealed by divine runes." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and whispered. Situ Xuetang was also anxious. She immediately asked, "What do we do?" "Don't worry. There's still a chance. Don't be impatient and pretend you don't know anything. I don't want to implicate you in this matter. Even if my identity is exposed, you can say that I deceived you," Yi Qinghan calmly reminded her. Situ Xuetang pursed her lip. She still wanted to be the savior. Yi Qinghan glanced at Situ Xuetang's face and knew what she was thinking. He said, "Don't worry. When I leave, I'll take you out to sea. The original universe is much bigger and more exciting than here." Situ Xuetang grinned. At that moment, the 3 ascended Medicine God Peak. With Situ Gang leading the way, no one stopped them. Martial nephew Situ Gang has come to greet Uncle Medicine God. Situ Gang bowed as soon as he reached the main peak. The divine alchemist seemed to have been waiting for Yi Qinghan, an existence with a heaven-defying physical body. This was because the divine alchemist was also researching a type of immortal medicine that could allow a person's physical body to reach the level of a sage. This way, he could mass-produce sages, and Yi Qinghan happened to be a test subject. "Come to the main hall," a dignified voice sounded. Chapter 3087. The main hall of the Medicine God Peak was silent. Yi Qinghan looked a little terrified, like an honest young man who had just seen a supreme being. He did not dare to look up and could only tug at Situ Xuetong's sleeve. The Medicine God Elder looked at Yi Qinghan curiously. "Is he the one who defeated Chen Bei with one punch?" the Medicine God Elder asked with a smile. Situ Gang immediately bowed and replied, "Uncle, that's him. I didn't feel any nomological order power, at least I didn't. Please take a look." The Medicine God was majestic. His eyes flashed as if they could see through all fabrications. He stared at Yi Qinghan as if he could see through Yi Qinghan's disguise. A faint smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Whoosh! The Medicine God stepped lightly and appeared beside Yi Qinghan. He raised his hand slightly and controlled the situation. Even Yi Qinghan could not use any power beside him. The Medicine God pressed his hand on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and forced him to squat. The floor emitted a faint light as the array was activated. Boom! Yi Qinghan was pressed into a chair, and this was under the condition that he resisted. It was clear that this person's control of the Dharma and order was not an ordinary sage. "Young man, your strength is not bad." The Medicine God looked at Yi Qinghan. His consciousness enveloped Yi Qinghan's soul and every inch of his skin. A strange look flashed between his brows, as if he had sensed something wrong. The divine alchemist scanned Yi Qinghan's soul and discovered the injury. The injury was indeed very serious and had damaged the source of one's soul. It could indeed cause one to become mentally retarded. He didn't suspect that Yi Qinghan had other intentions. This person has cultivated before, and his cultivation is quite good. His body contains the power of Dharma and Logos, as well as the power of the origin of the universe. Logically speaking, even if this person's soul has been damaged and he has become mentally retarded, he shouldn't be unable to use the power of Dharma and Logos. But now, he hasn't leaked any power of Dharma and Logos or the power of the origin of the universe. The Medicine God's eyes narrowed into a line. He was the Medicine God and knew every change in a person's body. Yi Qinghan could not hide in front of him. Looking at the depths of his eyes, there is no evil essence. He should not be an evil person. But this person's identity has yet to be confirmed. His peak strength is probably very powerful. If I directly expose his true face, will it cause a great bloodbath? The drug god seemed to be treating Yi Qinghan's soul injury, but he was actually thinking about his next move. Yi Qinghan was extremely nervous at the moment and did not dare to make any unnecessary movements. He looked at the Medicine God's smile from the corner of his eyes and could not help but feel angry. This kind of person was too familiar with the body. There was no problem with his acting skills, but the nature of his body could betray him. The Medicine God did not expose Yi Qinghan's identity. He only mobilized the power of the soul to heal the injury on his soul bit by bit. Yi Qinghan was completely out of control. His soul was rapidly recovering, and a trace of rationality and wisdom began to appear in his eyes. It was a world of difference from his previous turbid eyes. His unique temperament was restored and his domineering aura leaked out. This was the real Yi Qinghan. When Situ Gang saw Yi Qinghan, he couldn't help but be shocked. This person was definitely not from the inner realm. Although the E-Divine Realm was a world of virtuous paragons, everyone knew how many experts there were in the inner realm. In particular, someone like Yi Qinghan had a photographic memory. If he was from the inner realm, there was no way they wouldn't recognize him. Situ Xuetang looked at Yi Qinghan's current state and her heartbeat sped up. You are not from the inner realm. Situ Gang clenched his iron fist and questioned in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan knew that he could not hide this identity, so he bowed and said, "Thank you, Medicine God Elder, for healing my injuries, and thank you, Mr. Situ, for your help. I am indeed not from the inner realm, but I have some connections with the inner realm. The inner realm's father god is also my ancestor." The medicine god maintained his smile and faintly said, "Oh? What do you mean? Tell me your identity." "I come from the original universe, the 9-star field. I wonder if the medicine god has heard of it?" Yi Qinghan respectfully asked. The medicine god had long been separated from the original universe. Those who truly knew about the original universe and the secondary universe were the first-generation descendants of Ho-E. However, they did not tell the history of the past to their descendant. They only wanted them to live a peaceful life here, so the medicine god did not know what happened in the 9-star field. "I don't know." The medicine god narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Qinghan. There was doubt in his eyes. He did not trust Yi Qinghan because he knew from the beginning that Yi Qinghan was pretending. Ho Yi's father god is the ancestor of the third planet in the 9-star field, and my soul also comes from the third planet. Yi Qinghan bowed and said. The medicine god and Situ Gang both stared at Yi Qinghan with suspicion. Yi Qinghan looked at their suspicious eyes, especially the disdain in the medicine god's eyes. He knew that his little trick had been seen through. He could only smile bitterly and prepare to confess. "Yes, the medicine god elder has a discerning eye. My little trick is really embarrassing. I hope the medicine god elder will not be angry." Yi Qinghan bowed and said. The medicine god calmly took a few steps back and sat on the throne in the main hall. He calmly said, "Tell me your purpose, or you might not be able to leave the medicine god peak today." Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow replica appeared in his hand. His aura suddenly rose and angrily rushed into the galaxy. It instantly affected the entire sacred mountain and alarmed countless experts. More than 30 peak lords instantly came out of seclusion, including the sacred lord. They opened their eyes and walked out to stare at the medicine god peak. Yi Qinghan held the immortal bow with both hands and directly offered it. Bang! The medicine god elder and Situ Gang directly knelt down. They did not dare to take the immortal bow. This bow was too similar to the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan dodged, not daring to let the two kneel in front of him. This immortal bow is a replica of Father God's sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. It came from the third planet of the 9-star field's virtuous paragon. That ancestor fought side by side with Father God, so he was able to replicate this immortal weapon. This also proves that Yi Qinghan truly came from the third planet. Hiss, the medicine god gasped. He even thought that the immortal weapon in Yi Qinghan's hand was the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. This was why he knelt down. He had only seen the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow once during the first battle against the outsiders. Although it was just a glimpse, it was enough to remember for 100 generations. Whoosh! The medicine god elder stood up and stared at Yi Qinghan with disbelief in his eyes. Bang! At this moment, Situ Xuetang knelt down and respectfully said, "Xuetang knows her mistake. A few days ago, little brother Yi came to find me and hoped that I could bring him to see the medicine god. At first, I didn't believe little brother Yi, but he shared his soul with me and gave his life to me. Only then did I understand what happened. Medicine god elder, little brother Yi is telling the truth. A world-ending war is about to happen in the outer realm, so little brother Yi came to ask for the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow, Father God's weapon. Only Father God's sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow can stop this world-ending calamity. Hearing this, Situ Gang became furious and angrily rebuked. Xuetong, how dare you betray Yi Shinshan? Betraying the Yi Shinshan realm. Chapter 3088. In the main hall of Medicine God Peak, Situ Gang was furious and wanted to kill Situ Xuetong. Betraying the Yi Divine Realm was a taboo that could easily lead to the destruction of a clan. Whoosh! Situ Gang moved extremely fast and wasn't just for show. A palm print appeared in front of Situ Xuetong's forehead. Boom! Yi Qinghan waved his hand in front of Situ Xuetong and sent Situ Gang flying with a dazzling radiance. Patriarch Situ, there's no need to be angry. Miss Xuetong didn't betray the Yi Divine Realm or Yi Shinshan, nor did she betray Godfather. She was trying to save Yi Shinshan and Godfather. She didn't want Godfather to leave with regrets, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Nonsense. Situ Gang was furious. Situ Xuetong had betrayed Yi Shinshan, a great crime. He had to clean house. Yi Qinghan stood firmly in front of the terrified Situ Xuetong. He stared at the divine medicine elder and said, Father has already died in battle. You should know why. I don't believe that Yi Shinshan has no record of why he died. You can go to the main peak and ask to see if I'm lying. If I don't get the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow, then in 10,000 years at most, all the sages' worlds, including the primal universe, will be destroyed. Xuetong is doing this out of kindness. You will understand in the future. The medicine god was silent. His smile finally disappeared and his expression turned solemn. At that moment, 3 figures appeared on the medicine god peak. They were all from the main peak. All 3 of them wore white robes and held divine crossbows in their hands. They were similar to the imitation divine crossbows in Yi Qinghan's hands. They were the Sacred Lord, Grand Elder, and Second Elder. These 3 were the top experts of the Yishan realm, especially the Saint Master. He looked to be in his 60s, and even his hair and brows were white. His eyes were filled with dignity and wisdom. He was the most knowledgeable about history, and at first glance, he saw the imitation immortal bow in Yi Qinghan's hand. He could tell that the immortal bow was an imitation and not the real sun-shooting, immortal exterminating bow. Sacred Lord, Elders, you came at the right time. This person said. The medicine god immediately said. The Sacred Lord nodded and said calmly, What he said is the truth, but this person's identity has yet to be confirmed. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, someone who understood history had arrived. Greetings, Senior. Junior is Yi Qinghan, from the Primal Universe's 3rd planet. I have been entrusted by Virtuous Paragon Yu Zun to ask the descendants of Virtuous Paragon Ho-E Ancestor to heavily injure the 9 Paragons and even eliminate them at all costs. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said, Virtuous Yu Zun? The Sacred Master's brows furrowed. He knew this name. It was in existence of the same generation as the Divine Father, someone of boundless merit and virtue. Where is great sage Yu Zun? The Sacred Lord cupped his fists and asked. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and replied in a serious tone, Virtuous Paragon Yu Zun has fallen. He used up all of his merit points and life to lay down the 9 Cauldrons formation to suppress the 9 Paragons for countless years. In the end, he couldn't outlast the 9 of them. Before his death, he told me to take care of the 9 Paragons. With just you? You haven't even stabilized your position as a Paragon, so how are you going to suppress the 9 Paragons of the secondary universe? The Sacred Master asked in a serious tone. Yi Qinghan sighed and said helplessly, The virtuous Paragons of the 3rd planet are past their prime, and there aren't many of them left. I can only be pushed to the front. I don't want to face this kind of situation, but there's no other way. Although we're at a disadvantage, it's not like we can't win. I have two friends who are about to enter the virtuous paragon realm. One of them has obtained the recognition of the secondary universe, while the other has been tainted with Ancestor Yellow Emperor's merit points and has obtained the recognition of the ruler's energy origin. Becoming a virtuous paragon is just around the corner. Although I haven't entered the virtuous paragon realm, my strength is far beyond that of an ordinary paragon. If I fuse with my divine pet, becoming a virtuous paragon isn't impossible. The sacred master pondered for a moment and said indifferently, "So what if the three of you become virtuous paragons? 3 against 9, what will you use to fight?" Yi Qinghan frowned and looked at the sacred master. It was clear that he didn't want to fight and only wanted peace. "Are we going to give up? Everything Father and the others have done will be for naught? If we give up, the original universe will collapse, and those below the secondary universe ancestor level won't be able to survive. Yixin sector might be remote, but it's definitely not a saint realm. We can be found at any time." Yi Qinghan reminded in a low voice, "I've traveled across the universe to find the sun shooting immortal destroying bow just to break the current situation. Back then, virtuous paragon Ho-E relied on the sun shooting immortal destroying bow to heavily injure 9 virtuous paragons. Don't tell me his descendants don't even have the heart to fight?" "Impudent!" Great Elder glared at Yi Qinghan and was about to attack Yi Qinghan. However, the sacred master stopped him and shook his head slightly. He calmly said, "It's not that we don't dare to fight, but that the sun shooting immortal destroying bow is no longer in Yixin sector." "What?" Yi Qinghan was shocked. The immortal bow in his hand trembled slightly, and godly light shot out in all directions. "Yixin sector has had 2 major wars. The first time, my ancestor relied on the sun shooting immortal destroying bow to destroy the invaders. However, he left Yixin sector with the bow not long after. Since then, there has been no news of him. The whereabouts of the sun shooting immortal destroying bow are also unknown." Sacred Master sighed. Yi Qinghan took several steps back dispiritedly and sat down powerlessly on the chair. Looking at the Sacred Master's expression, he knew that his hopes were dashed again. "May I ask if the first-generation Sacred Master is dead or alive?" Yi Qinghan asked hoarsely. The Sacred Master nodded. The only thing he could be sure of was that his grandfather, Ho Yi's son, was still alive. "His life tablet is not broken. He's still alive," the Sacred Master said solemnly. Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief. If his ancestor was still alive, it would be easy to find the sun shooting immortal destroying bow. "Senior, thank you for your guidance." Yi Qinghan stood up and cupped his fist. The Sacred Master shook his head and said indifferently, "You've been guided, but I hope to find out your identity before you leave Yixin sector. If there's no problem with your identity, then my Yixin sector and you can be considered to be of the same origin. We won't make things difficult for you." Yi Qinghan frowned. He couldn't afford to waste any time. "How do you want to find out?" Yi Qinghan asked. The Sacred Master gestured with his hand. "Give me the immortal bow first. It has a spirit, so I can naturally communicate with it." Yi Qinghan frowned and pondered for a moment. This Sacred Master was Ho Yi's subordinate after all. He wouldn't do something that would make his enemies happy. "Senior, please communicate with it. This immortal bow indeed has a spirit." Yi Qinghan offered the immortal bow with both hands. The Sacred Master took the immortal bow and stroked it with both hands. His bloodline was very pure. Although it wasn't equivalent to Ho Yi's bloodline, the compatibility between his bloodline and the immortal bow was far superior to Yi Qinghan's. Once the immortal bow was in the Sacred Master's hand, its light became even brighter. Its pressure soared to the sky and pressed against the dome. The immortal light enveloped the Sacred Master and the immortal bow. They were in harmony with each other and their souls became one. This was a connection between their souls. The Sacred Master could control this immortal bow with just a thought. The sacred master walked out of the medicine god peak with the immortal bow. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Ho Yi's statue. He knelt on the ground and offered the immortal bow with both hands. Supreme Father, please tell your descendant what to do. The sacred master knelt on the ground and was extremely respectful. Chapter 3 is set at night. Chapter 3089. The sacred lord prostrated himself respectfully. He held the immortal bow with both hands and prayed for Ho Yi's instructions. The huge statue was 1,000 feet tall and looked extremely majestic. It had always been in a calm state, receiving the blessings and reverence of the world all year round. He was only a middle-aged man, but he was even more revered than Zhang Daoling and the Grand Supreme Elder. From afar, his eyes were lifelike as though they were alive. Anyone who looked at them would be immersed in them. His clothes were as white as snow and the patterns were clear. It was indescribably elegant. The huge bow in his hand could pierce the heavens, and the huge arrow could touch the clouds. The sacred lord held the immortal bow replica and emitted immortal might. At that moment, under the statue, a divine light shot out. Ho Yi's statue seemed to be coming to life. The divine light from the immortal bow stimulated the statue's majesty. Two different divine lights intertwined as the immortal bow was pulled into the sky. The statue was alive. Yes, at that moment, the statue moved and directly pulled the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow replica into his hand. It happened in a flash. Some even thought that it was an illusion. Even the sacred lord thought that the immortal bow flew into the statue's hand, and not the statue taking the initiative to grab the immortal bow. Although the immortal bow was a replica, it was bursting with divine might. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared under the statue. At that moment, he seemed to have noticed that the statue was moving. It had taken the initiative to take the immortal bow, but he was not sure. He even thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Situ Gang and Situ Xuetong appeared under the statue and knelt respectfully on the ground. They did not dare to blaspheme. Yi Qinghan also knelt on one knee and silently waited for Ho Yi's statue's instructions. The statue of Ho Yi bore the sacrifices and blessings of countless living beings. Every city in the world had a statue, and the statues were all connected to each other. The blessings received by the other smaller statues would gather in this huge statue, and it would definitely become a god. Although it was not a true descendant, it had its own consciousness. Whoosh! The statue moved and slowly squatted down. It held the immortal bow in one hand. It had communicated with the immortal bow's immortal soul, and already knew everything. Ho Yi's statue placed its huge hand in front of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan was not even the size of its palm. His finger was only the size of a finger. Sand and dust were gently stirred up and shot in all directions. Yi Qinghan, I'm very gratified that you're willing to take on this responsibility. Back then, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors joined forces, but they either died or were injured. The rest are already in their twilight years. Now, we can only rely on you. The majestic voice boomed like thunder. Yi Qinghan was trembling all over. He raised his head slightly to look at the sculpture of Ho Yi. His eyes were filled with disbelief. You are very surprised, but let me tell you, I'm not a god. It's just that my soul hasn't perished. All that's left is a wisp of my soul. It's gathered in the sculpture, using the sculpture and endless merit of faith to live. Do you understand now? Ho Yi said in a deep voice. Bang! At this moment, Yi Qinghan got down on both knees and raised both hands to hold the immortal bow. He respectfully said, Descendant Yi Qinghan understands. I'm willing to go through fire and water to fulfill your unfinished wish. Ho Yi's statue faintly smiled and said with a hoarse voice, I've waited for this day for many years. The first time an outsider came, it was because of greed. The second time, it was also because of greed. But you came for the sake of the common people, and even obtained the 10-arrow art. This is fate and fortune. This is all I can do. Whoosh! Endless merit and holy light gushed out from Ho Yi's statue. This was the power of a virtuous paragon. It all poured into Yi Qinghan's sea of memories. Yi Qinghan's limbs and bones surged. The power of a virtuous paragon roared, and the merit of a virtuous paragon filled his body. Endless memories swarmed in. Even the last wisp of Ho Yi's soul turned into the insights of a virtuous paragon and was sent into Yi Qinghan's sea of memories. The pain caused him to roar incessantly. Buzz, buzz, buzz! The immortal bow vibrated as a boundless immortal light pierced through the dome. The memories of the 10-arrow art were all awakened. A virtuous paragon didn't forget his original goal even in death and helped Yi Qinghan reach the pinnacle of this art. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qinghan and the immortal bow's compatibility reached perfection. At this moment, even if the sunshot immortal vanquishing bow appeared in person, it would still have a perfect compatibility with the bow. I know that there was no way to kill the 9 virtuous paragons back then, but I also hope that you can fulfill my wish and use the sunshot immortal vanquishing bow to end them and reform the reincarnation cycle so that you can rule over everything. These words appeared in Yi Qinghan's sea of memories before disappearing without a trace. The last trace of virtuous paragon Ho Yi also disappeared. The statue was still half squatting, but it no longer had any aura or power fluctuations. It had turned into a pure statue. Godfather! The sacred lord and the elders mourned while Situ Gang and Situ Xuetong had tears running down their cheek. Yi Qinghan was silent and didn't speak for a long time. This was a true virtuous paragon. For the sake of his original heart, he didn't even give himself the last bit of hope. As long as the common people could continue, that was enough. This state of mind was not something an ordinary person could achieve. I will never be able to do this. Yi Qinghan kneeled on the ground with complicated emotions in his eyes. Indeed, the gap between him and a virtuous paragon was like the distance between heaven and earth. He could be fearless for the sake of the insane faction, but he couldn't be fearless for the sake of the common people. However, this was no longer important. He already had Ho Yi's virtuous paragon merit on top of the insane faction's army outside. Thus, he was now at the virtuous paragon realm and had the power of a virtuous paragon. He had inherited the most essential part of Ho Yi's power, the 10-arrow art. Below the sacred mountain, the wind stopped blowing. Countless experts were alarmed. No one expected this to happen. Even Chen Bei's group appeared below the sacred mountain. They looked at Yi Qinghan kneeling on the ground with the bow in his hand and were speechless for a long time. Whoosh! Supreme Yi appeared next to Yi Qinghan and cautiously stared at everyone. "Boss, have we been exposed?" he whispered. Yi Qinghan nodded, then he shook his head and replied with a hoarse voice, "Virtuous paragon Ho Yi has come back to life. He gave me the purest inheritance. Right now, as long as I have the sunshot immortal vanquishing bow, I can crush 9 paragons." You've become a virtuous paragon? Supreme Ye's eyes narrowed as he looked at Yi Qinghan's ethereal realm with surging smoke. The aura of a virtuous paragon was calm and heavy. "Yes, it's done," Yi Qinghan quietly murmured. This realm was achieved by stepping on the life of virtuous paragon Ho Yi. The responsibility on his shoulders was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and slowly stood up. He looked at the experts and elders kneeling on the ground and solemnly said, "I'm going to fulfill Godfather's wish. If I see the first sacred lord, ask him to send the sunshot immortal vanquishing bow to the heaven-suppressing prefecture of the ancient immortal world. I need it for the final battle." The sacred lord and the elders finally calmed down and looked at Yi Qinghan. "Also, Situ Xuetang is not a traitor. She is saving us. Do not make things difficult for her. Otherwise, I will punish you in the name of Godfather," Yi Qinghan said sternly as he swept his gaze over the crowd. The sacred lord stood up and bowed. Your Excellency, you are now the successor of Godfather. Your words represent Godfather. We won't blame Situ Shuatong and will even reward her. Yi Qinghan nodded with satisfaction. He looked at Situ Shuatong and asked, Do you want to stay in God Yi's world or go outside to take a look? I respect your decision. However, I can tell you that the primal universe is very dangerous right now. Situ Shuatong's eyes lit up. She had never given up on her savior mentality. Your Excellency, please take me out. I will represent Godfather's descendant in this battle. I won't regret it even if I die. She firmly said. Chapter 3090. Situ Shuatong understood Yi Qinghan and the crazy mansion, so she knew the meaning behind her words. Not just anyone could say that they would die without regret. Even if they said it, they might not be able to do it. Yi Qinghan looked at her and gently sighed. He had promised her before, so it was time to take her out. However, once they left the Divine Realm, everyone could die in the final battle. Clan Master Situ, are you willing to let your daughter go? Yi Qinghan asked with a serious tone. Situ Gang hesitated for a moment. In the end, Situ Shuatong was his favorite daughter. If he let her go, the chances of her coming back alive would be too slim. However, Yi Qinghan was the successor chosen by Godfather. Even the last strand of Godfather's soul was given to him. In the future, Yi Qinghan would definitely surpass virtuous paragons. Situ Gang's eyes flashed as he bowed and said, I will listen to esteemed master's command. Situ Shuatong's decision is mine. Yi Qinghan nodded and looked at the sacred lord. He cupped his fists and said, Senior, I have a request. Please take Dong Yuan from the Eastern Barbarian tribe as a closed-door disciple. Just who was the sacred lord? Only the top geniuses would be accepted as disciples. Even Dong Qing and Chen Bei were only considered. Dong Yuan was only at the golden immortal level. The sacred lord didn't know this name. He frowned and looked at the elders around him. Who is Dong Yuan? Senior brother sacred lord. She is the youngest daughter of Dong Yichen from the Eastern Barbarian tribe. She is at the eternal golden immortal level with decent talent. Her only fame is that she is ranked 6th in the Divine Realm, the same as Situ Shuatong. An elder immediately stepped forward and answered. The sacred lord might be old, but he wasn't stubborn. He immediately knew that Yi Qinghan owed her a favor and came to him to repay it. Ha ha ha, esteemed master, since you have spoken, I have no choice but to agree. Take her in as a closed-door disciple. The sacred lord laughed. Yi Qinghan chuckled and cupped his fists again. Then this junior will take his leave. I have been away from the primal universe for so long and don't know what is going on outside. I am quite anxious. I hope seniors will forgive me. Yi Qinghan said in a low tone. The elders wanted to talk to Yi Qinghan and learn more about the primal universe, but they didn't expect him to leave, so they wanted to urge him to stay. Of a paragon's laws and the power of the universe. The power was twos. Two. Paragons two. In. Two. To be twos, his. Everyone, farewell. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said. He reached out and took Situ Shuatong away. His figure flashed and left the E-God realm. He went into the virtuous paragon's spatial ring and appeared in the primal chaos outside. The spear and the breeze sword were still there. No one had touched them. Yi Qinghan took off Ho Yi's spatial ring and put it on. With a thought, the two rings fused into one and took away the spear and the sword. Situ Shuatong didn't pay attention to anything else. She only looked at Ho Yi's corpse and respectfully kowtowed several times. Yi Qinghan sighed softly and said in a deep voice, I want to bring his body back to the third planet so that he can rest in peace. Okay. Situ Xuetong nodded repeatedly. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and placed Ho Yi's corpse on his back. His left hand grabbed Situ Xuetong's hand and said, "This place is very dangerous, hold on to me. No matter what you see, don't panic or become greedy." Situ Xuetong chose to trust Yi Qinghan unconditionally and held Yi Qinghan's hand with both hands. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan gazed into the distance. They passed through the garbage dump and reversed the black holes. It was as if they had entered the reincarnation cycle. The power of a virtuous paragon could twist and reverse all things. They stepped through the black holes and spatial rifts to return to the original universe. Both the primal and secondary universes were in chaos. On one hand, they were looking for the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. On the other, they were suppressing the chaos and stabilizing the situation. The sacred grounds and superpowers were restless and wanted to compete with insane manner. However, no one dared to take the lead. Although the remaining virtuous paragons wanted to, they didn't have the courage to do so. Gu Qingyu, Heaven's equal monkey monarch, and Elegant Leaf. These three experts became virtuous paragons. In the past, they won a drinking contest and borrowed the ruler's power to become a virtuous paragon. The moment they became virtuous paragons, they became invincible and intimidated the three sub-worlds. Thus, Insane Manor's name was like the sun at noon. Jian Bugui and Flame King, who were hiding in the shadows, quietly rose in this chaotic world and became virtuous paragons with boundless merit. Flame King activated the Yellow Emperor's merit and became a virtuous paragon. With a wave of his will, he could control the power of the universe. The two of them completely grasped the power of virtuous paragons and came out of seclusion to train the experts of Insane Manor. They used their own experience to support Yen Yunbei, Mu Zhuang, Shi Gu, Yi Qinxing, Li Peiza, and Huo Lingtian, allowing them to reach the virtuous paragon realm. Ultimate Saint Thieving didn't need anyone else, and became a virtuous paragon on his own. He was the first person in recent years to obtain a ruler's power. The moment he became a virtuous paragon, he was overjoyed and wanted to trample over the old virtuous paragons to steal their treasures. However, before Yi Qinghan's return, a terrifying event occurred in Nine-Star Realm. The 9 stars aligned and the heaven and earth were in chaos. The sky was dyed red, as if it was dyed by blood. The 9 cauldrons' grand formation emitted a boundless brilliance. Its terrifying aura caused the world to be filled with lightning and rain. Fan Chen didn't care and only felt that the weather wasn't good. However, Zhang Daoling was scared witless. The divine cauldron on the 4th planet didn't have a ruler's origin since it had been stolen by the divine bird's father. Because the cauldron contained no sovereign essence energy, it caused the 9 cauldrons' formation to become unstable. The cauldron was overturned, and a fiendish figure crawled out from within. He looked like a skeleton, and his fingers were nothing more than skin and bones. Boom! The corpse-like person crawled out of the abyss and stepped on the cauldron. His eyes were eerie and incomparably dark. His body was filled with killing intent, causing the phenomena in the heaven and earth to become even more terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dark clouds covered the heaven and earth, making it impossible to see one's own fingers. The starry sky had disappeared long ago. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled as heavy rain poured down. The 9 cauldrons' grand formation was broken and the divine cauldron tilted as people continuously crawled out from 9-star realm. The 9 virtuous paragons had come out. Countless years of suppression had caused them to be filled with hatred. The first thing they did when they came out was to stare at the 3rd planet with murderous intent. "I'm out again." The hoarse voice seemed to come from the depths of hell, causing one's hair to stand on end. On the 3rd planet, the Taoist mountain collapsed. Zhang Daoling held an oil paper umbrella on top of the mountain and saw a divine cauldron appear under the cracked mountain. He knew that it was too late. Chapter 3091. On the third planet, Taoist Mountain was split into two. A demon escaped and stared at Zhang Daoling with cold eyes. With a swipe of its sharp claws, the third planet, which was devoid of order, was distorted. Zhang Daoling couldn't even escape and was refined alive. His originally withered flesh began to glow, but Zhang Daoling's eyes were lifeless and he had lost all signs of life. "You the great Hou-Yi, are you all dead?" The devil laughed ghastly as he tossed Zhang Daoling's dried corpse to the side with a wave of his hand, and then his figure flashed and left directly. The 9 paragons had been suppressed for so many years and their injuries had yet to recover. They didn't dare to attack the Jade Court Sacred Realm, so they all fled to the secondary universe. On Taoist Mountain, Zhang Daoling's eyes were lifeless. He smiled wryly before his death. He wasn't a paragon and could only wait for death when facing a heavily wounded one. The 9 paragons disappeared quickly. They didn't attack the Jade Court Sacred Realm right away but instead disappeared from the secondary universe without a trace. They all had their own forces but they were all in hiding. Even when Quang Manor appeared out of nowhere and suppressed the other paragons, they didn't show themselves and only waited for their paragons to recover. The news of their escape quickly alerted the Jade Court Sacred Realm and Quang Manor. The few paragons in their twilight years didn't move because they couldn't find the 9 paragons unless the secondary universe was destroyed. As for Quang Manor, they immediately sent a message to the 3 great secondary realms after knowing that the 9 paragons had recovered. Each of them sent a messenger arrow to the sky. Gu Qingyu, Mu Zhuang, Heaven's equal Monkey King, and the others all moved out to welcome the return of Quang Manor's army. At this time, more than a dozen terrifying forces suddenly occupied a large area and began to hunt down the people of Quang Manor. The people of Quang Manor had won the hearts of the people. Under the protection of the common people, they escaped from the other secondary realms and forces and returned to the heaven-seeking domain. Yan Emperor and Jian Bugui led a large group of experts to rescue the army. After spending several months, they finally managed to gather the entire army back to the Quang Manor Immortal Kingdom. In the heaven-suppressing prefecture, the older generation of Quang Manor gathered. They all felt a strong murderous intent. "Who are these people?" Gu Qingyu frowned. The sudden appearance of so many forces that were not any weaker than Quang Manor was a little strange. Many people still did not know about the 9 sages. The Flame Emperor sat on the main seat. He had triggered the Yellow Emperor's great merit, so he knew about the War of Desolation. Those people are the descendants or forces of the 9 virtuous paragons of the secondary universe. However, they have been hidden for so long that the world has forgotten about them. Now that the 9 virtuous paragons have revived, they have also revived. Yen Emperor said in a serious tone. "The 9 Supremes paragons?" Everyone from the crazy manor looked at the Flame Emperor in shock. After the Yen Emperor told them about the War of the Ancients, they finally understood what had happened. "Everyone, there is no need to panic. Palace Lord Yi went to find the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow in order to find a way to kill the 9 paragons. Now that they have been suppressed for so many years, they won't be able to recover to their peak state in a short period of time," the Flame Emperor said in a serious tone. After so many years, 2 people from the secondary Saint realm had arrived. They were Yi Qinghan and Situ Xuetong. Yi Qinghan carried Hou-Yi's corpse and flashed into the Jadeite sacred realm. The aura of a virtuous paragon immediately alarmed the elderly lord. When the elderly lord saw Yi Qinghan, he couldn't help but let out a breath of turbid air and said with a sad expression, "Dao Ling has fallen and the 9 paragons of the secondary universe have escaped." Yi Qinghan's pupils shrunk. He didn't expect another venerable old man to leave. "Hiss, hiss, hiss." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said with a hoarse voice, "I know. Also, I found Hou-Yi's corpse. You can bury him. Leave the 9 paragons of the secondary universe to me." The elderly lord looked at Yi Qinghan and found that his cultivation was fluctuating. It seemed to be at the limit of the progenitor realm, but upon closer inspection, there were also fluctuations of virtuous paragon power. "You've become a virtuous paragon?" the elderly lord doubtfully asked. Yi Qinghan wryly smiled and whispered, "I obtained the last strand of Ho Yi's soul and comprehended the 10-arrow art. I also obtained his boundless merit and have the power of a virtuous paragon, but I haven't stabilized my cultivation yet. It's only a matter of time. I'll go back and consolidate for a few years." The elderly lord couldn't help but sigh. The insane mansion now had 3 paragons, especially Yi Qinghan. He had comprehended the 10-arrow art and obtained the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. It was not impossible for him to suppress the 9 paragons again. "Did you get the sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow?" the elderly lord asked with anticipation. Yi Qinghan shook his head and helplessly said, "I haven't found it yet." "A's," the elderly lord sighed again. In the end, a replica was not the real thing. The difference in lethality was too great. Even if it could kill 1 paragon, the insane mansion had no chance of victory against 9 paragons working together. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He handed Ho Yi's corpse over to the elderly lord and calmly said, "Senior elderly lord, this junior will take a trip to the 9-star realm. Go." The elderly lord didn't try to stop him. It was a race against time. The first to leave would tilt the scales of victory. Yi Qinghan looked at Situ Xuetong and grabbed her hand. He insipidly said, "Come with me." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan brought Situ Xuetong out of the Jadestar sacred realm and entered the 9-star realm. The 9 cauldrons grand formation had lost its effect, but the 9 divine cauldrons were still there. Thus, the laws of order were recovering very slowly. Yi Qinghan's first step was to Taoist Mountain. The peak was broken but the cauldrons were still there. However, Zhang Daoling's corpse had been taken away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the cauldron. It was as heavy as a star and filled with divine patterns, laws, and the order of virtuous paragons. It was difficult to understand. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan placed the cauldron in Ho Yi's yin and yang ring and soared into the sky like a meteor. Flames filled the air. The cauldrons of the other 8 planets were not damaged. The 9 paragons had left in a hurry and only half of the sovereign's origin energy in the cauldrons had been lost. Yi Qinghan kept moving. The 9 planets took away all the cauldrons. Virtuous paragon Yuzun's bone of virtue was not taken away. It wasn't that the paragons of the secondary universe didn't want to take it, but that they couldn't. Yi Qinghan held the bone of virtue and took a deep breath. He whispered, "Forefather Yuzun, the rest is up to us. You should rest." Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan put the bone of virtue away and took the last cauldron with him. He rushed into the sky seeking domain with Situ Xuetong, crossing several secondary universes in one step. In the heaven-suppressing palace, all the experts had gathered together. Even extreme saint-thieving heaven did not dare to run around. This was because the 9 paragons had ordered their descendants to capture experts for them to refine and heal their injuries. In an instant, everyone was in danger and anyone could be taken away. Qian Yixue gave up her territory and moved most of her people into the Saint World. She then moved to Kuang Manor and officially joined it. Purple Thorn Sage and Xiao Yu Sage were left with no other choice. They could either submit to Kuang Manor or be taken away. There was no third option for them. Thus, they were forced to join Kuang Manor. Chapter 3092. After the bloody storm, the 3 subworlds settled down once more. Not a single expert remained, including the Ancestor Realm expert. They were all captured alive. Outside of Kuang Fu, the progenitors and paragons were all gone. Even the Taigu Emperor didn't dare to show himself. Outside of the ancient immortal subworld, the other two were occupied by ancient powers. Only the resilient turtle ancestor was still guarding his territory. Without a virtuous paragon, no one could break through his defense. This turtle shell carried the scars of countless years. In the primal universe, two figures were moving quickly. One of them had a bow and a spear on his back. There was also a quiver with 9 arrows. Yi Qinghan brought back the 9 cauldrons from the virtuous paragon's storage ring. These cauldrons had powerful defenses that even virtuous paragons would have a hard time breaking through. They could be used for both defense and offense as long as they were refined. The two walked through the Qiu Heaven Realm at lightning speed and finally arrived at Kuang Fu Immortal Kingdom several days later. The Crazy Manor Immortal Kingdom was still flourishing as ever. The North Xiong Immortal Kingdom, the South Immortal Kingdom, and the West Immortal Kingdom were all vassals of the Crazy Manor. Yi Qinghan looked at the kingdom and felt an inexplicable sense of pride. This is Kuang Fu Immortal Kingdom. Yi Qinghan pointed at the flourishing kingdom and proudly said. Kuang Fu Immortal Kingdom was far smaller than the Yi Divine World, but the concentration here was much more terrifying. There would never be a situation where everyone had to fight for themselves. Sidu Shuetang looked at the Crazy Manor Immortal Kingdom that she had been looking forward to for a long time. She really wanted to see Yi Qinghan's group of brothers. Those dozen or so people had fought alongside Yi Qinghan since they were young. They were all part of the younger generation, but they were unparalleled. Each of them was equivalent to an elder of the Yi Divine Realm. Situ Shuetang sped through the kingdom and saw the flourishing cities and peaceful atmosphere. She couldn't help but marvel. Yi Qinghan smiled and in a flash, he appeared in the heaven-suppressing palace with Situ Shuetang. At this time, Yan's sovereign and Jian Bugui were still waiting for Yi Qinghan in the heaven-suppressing palace. After all, the 9 paragons had awakened and could attack at any moment. They dared not let their guard down. "I'm back," a deep voice echoed in the heaven-suppressing palace. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, dozens of silhouettes rushed out from the heaven-suppressing palace. Each of them looked like war gods with divine weapons in their hands. The men were handsome and the women were beautiful. Especially the Green Lotus Sword God, Boss, Jian Qinshu, Emperor Yi, and the others, their auras were so strong that Sidu Shuetang was no match for them. Every beauty in the crazed manor had risked their lives to get to where they were, and they were fundamentally different from Sidu Shuetang. Oh, when the Crazy Manor's members saw that Yi Qinghan had brought another beauty with him, they couldn't help but laugh. Yi Qinghan smiled, pointed at Sidu Shuetang and said calmly, "Everyone, please don't misunderstand. This person is the descendant of the 3rd planet's Ho-E virtuous sage. She and I share the same root. Let me introduce her, she is Situ Shuetang." When Situ Shuetang heard Yi Qinghan's words, her face blushed and her heart felt sour. But when she saw Jian Qinshu and the others, she knew that Yi Qinghan wouldn't want her anymore. He didn't need another woman to squeeze into his heart. Soon, Situ Shuetang felt relieved and bowed. "Greetings, fellow Taoists. I've heard a lot about you, but seeing is better than hearing 100 times. Now that I've met you today, I'm truly in awe of what you have done." After the crowd laughed, they stopped teasing Yi Qinghan and Situ Shuetang. The flaming emperor was very calm. He didn't like to joke. At this moment, he looked at Yi Qinghan and asked, "Did you find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow?" Yi Qinghan shook his head, but then he said, "However, there is no need to worry. Although I didn't find the bow, I did find Ho-E virtuous sage. He gave me a great merit and a strand of his soul, allowing me to reach the virtuous sage realm." Everyone was ecstatic. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to also reach the virtuous sage realm. Jian Bugui smiled and didn't say anything. He held his sword with both hands and stroked the scabbard with his fingertips. He hadn't used it for many years, but no one dared to blaspheme his temperament. Yi Qinghan looked at Jian Bugui and gently nodded. They didn't need to talk too much. Jian Chenxue looked at Situ Xuetong and nodded with a smile. Let's go in and talk, there are still guests. Yi Qinghan immediately led Situ Xuetong into the main hall. This time, he didn't take the main seat. Yi Qinghan and the Flaming Emperor sat across each other while the others lined up below. The Flaming Emperor went straight to the point and said, "The 9 paragons have recovered and escaped from the 9-star realm. The paragons of the 3rd planet are old and no longer have the power to fight. Right now, only the 3 of us can fight. Qinghan, what do you think?" Yi Qinghan frowned with a cold glint in his eyes. The 9 paragons must be killed. Otherwise, the reincarnation path wouldn't be opened, let alone allowing the dead to reincarnate or even revive them. Instead of waiting, it is better to take the initiative. After 3 years, I have decided to take the initiative. The 3 of us will end this quickly and deal with the 3 of them first. They are gravely wounded and won't be able to recover in just a few years. With our strength, killing them shouldn't be a problem, right? Yi Qinghan replied with a serious tone. If the opponents were undamaged paragons at their peak, the 3 of them wouldn't be able to kill any of them. Even if they worked together, they still wouldn't be able to kill one. However, the situation was different now. Yi Qinghan, the Flaming Emperor, and Jian Bugui were the newest paragons of the younger generation. Whether it was their vitality or age, they were at the peak of their power. 3 years? What do you want to do? Jian Bugui asked with a crisp voice. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out the 9 cauldrons. He replied with a serious tone, "Refine the 9 cauldrons for my use. I will also consolidate my cultivation and familiarize myself with the 10-arrow art." "Very well, we will each do our job. After 3 years we will fight them to the death." The Flaming Emperor clenched his fist. No one was more eager than him to kill the 9 paragons, unify the 3 subworlds, open the path of reincarnation, and revive everyone in the cycle of reincarnation. Yi Qinghan nodded. His eyes swept over the carefree thieving Heaven Saint and the silent Yen Yunbei. He whispered, "Senior Thieving Heaven, Old Smoke, don't cultivate for the next 3 years. Apart from virtuous paragons, no one can do anything to you. Go to the 9 paragons' forces and take all their resources and equipment. Even if you can't take them away, you can't let them use them. Also, don't let the 9 paragons cultivate in peace for the next 3 years." Yen Yunbei nodded. Although the dagger in his hand couldn't keep up with his cultivation, it was still very sharp and could kill with one strike. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out a tooth. This was the tooth of a primordial monster. It took him hundreds of strikes to knock it down. As long as it was polished for a few days, it would be Yen Yunbei's best weapon. Killing a paragon would not be impossible. "Old Smoke, wait for me for a month. I will prepare a new weapon for you," Yi Qinghan said with a smile. Yen Yunbei's eyes brightened. He fell in love with the tooth as soon as he saw it. "Forget it. Qinghan, give me the tooth. I will make it into a weapon for Yunbei. You can focus on refining the 9 cauldrons and try to reach the strongest battle strength as soon as possible. I can't wait any longer." The Flaming Emperor shook his head and took the tooth. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.